Hello and welcome to WGTC Radio, the official podcast of the entertainment website We Got This Covered. I'm Jonathan Lack.
And I'm Sean Chapman.
And this week we are talking to you from the past.
Ooh.
Yes, Sean and I are both, as you're listening to this podcast, Sean and I are both sort of out of commission. I am in Canada right now on a fishing trip. No internet or anything. I'm in a cabin in a lake it's called Nestor Falls, Ontario. You've never heard of it. Just trust me.
And I'm indisposed. I'll be off fighting my arch nemesis. He's going to be throwing my girlfriend off a bridge in a few days, so I'm going to be kind of like dealing with shit, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you going to tell the listeners what you're actually up to?
That's what I'm actually up to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's like I'm working for S.H.I.E.L.D. It's a whole thing.
Okay.
So.
I want you to know when your girlfriend dies being thrown off the bridge, I will be there for you, buddy.
So it's like, are you going to be high on drugs like Harry Osborn, and I'm going to have to smack some sense into you?
No.
Okay, because I'm probably going to do it anyways.
I'm not Thank you, Sean.
You're welcome.
Okay. Anyway, we have hosted several other podcasts over the years, and we are today going to be playing you a long section of one of them. This is our countdown of our most hated movies. This was recorded back in February or March of 2012 this year, released under the Monthly Stuff podcast banner. So if you listen to the Monthly Stuff, you've already heard of most of this. You've already heard most of this, but we know we have a bigger audience for WGTC Radio. So most of you will have never heard this, but it's a really good discussion. And we talk about a bunch of terrible movies, lots of loud shouting and getting mad and swearing.
All the stuff you love, and hopefully not as much as the stuff you hate.
Yes, exactly. But I just want to urge you to listen to this podcast for one main reason, and that is that at the end of the podcast, Sean has a rant about a film called After Last Season. I've timed it before, it's the last 29 minutes and 55 seconds of the podcast. So if that's all you want to listen to, you only have half an hour, skip to the last 29 minutes and 55 seconds of the podcast and listen to Sean rant about After Last Season. I think it's a minor comedic masterpiece. It will also make you sad.
We need to release a director's cut and put on 5 more seconds so it's an even 30 minutes.
Do you want to do that?
Okay.
Splice it on the end here?
Okay, sure. So, yes, prepare yourselves for some really funny discussions about some really, really terrible movies.
Yes.
And yes.
So, lots of good stuff. We will see you back next week. We'll be talking about The Dark Knight Rises. So, have seen the movie by then.
The Dark Knight strikes again.
Dark Knight
returns again from the dead. R.I.P.
Dark Knight Rises, we'll be talking about the whole movie like
Year one.
Like in the Prometheus podcast or the Amazing Spider-Man podcast. So we will see you then. Hope you're all having a good week, and let's listen to the topic. We are going to talk about our most hated movies. And we use the term most hated because to say worst would be inaccurate in any case, I think. We try to avoid the worst of the worst movies, Sean and I. Like, even as a critic, there are some I have to see. And before, when I went to press screenings, there were a lot I had to see. But, even then, there are ones you just avoid.
And for me, I don't have any movies that I have to see, so my list is a bit sparse, but there are a few that I have inadvertently wound up seeing without realizing the complete terror that I was approaching.
Yes. And you have a story of one... Yeah,
we'll get to that.
We'll get to that. Anyway, so while we can't talk about the worst movies of all time, we were talking about this earlier. Is there anyone who could do that? And my only conclusion was Roger Ebert could do theatrical, but he couldn't do like direct to video.
Yeah, because there's so many especially if you get into stuff when people start getting their own hand cameras and trying to release movies on their own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I have one like that, but we'll get to that. We can talk about, however, which movies we've seen that we hate the most, and that's what we're doing today. We have really no set number of movies. I have a bunch. I don't know if we'll get to all of them. Sean has 6 or 7. Mm-hmm. And we're just going to go back and forth until we're out of stuff to talk about. I am going to start with a movie that I was reminded of the other day, and I just kind of got angry thinking about it. And this is Dr. Seuss's The Cat in the Hat.
I saw that. I don't remember anything except for... What was it? Was it Mike Myers?
It's the cat.
Yeah,
yes.
That dude was terrifying.
Yes, it was fucking terrifying. Cat in the Hat, and to a lesser extent, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, which is bad, but not nearly as bad as people make it out to be sometimes.
Yeah, How the Grinch Stole Christmas has some good moments.
Yeah, it does. But the problem both of those movies share is that they are parodies of Dr. Seuss. They're not in any way like organic adaptations or thoughtful adaptations. And The Cat in the Hat is possibly the most mean-spirited kids movie of all time. Because every other sentence out of Mike Myers' mouth as the cat is a really dirty sex joke. I'm not kidding. Like, oh my god, he's talking about getting spayed and neutered. He's talking about like there's so much of it. Like, he's got one of his main songs is all about him getting like hit in the nuts, and oh god,
do you remember if they ever used the phrase "the cat in the hat" as like an elaborate sex joke?
I think they did. Like, there's a whole thing where he sees like their mother's picture, and he takes it and he unfolds it like a Playboy fold out spread out, and then he's going like humana, and it's like. This is like, I'm not a prude, but this is for little kids,
Yeah, and then also it's like, where was the scene in the original, in the little book, where he like pulled out a centerfold of their mother?
And starts, jacking off to a picture of the kid's mother. That's not in the book.
It would have been a way better book, though.
I don't even know where to begin with this. It is, I want to start with this because I think it defines everything that I would say creates a bad movie. It's, a really terrible lead performance. Like, Mike Myers can be really funny when he is on, but not when he's in a cat suit. How else do I say that? When you think of the Cat in the Hat, do you associate that with Mike Myers? And, like his Austin Powers shtick? Because that's basically what he's doing in this. Yeah. And they even do make, I think he says, oh, behave, as the cat. So it's also from that time in movie history in the early 2000s where every kid's movie, this was after Shrek, where every kid's movie had to be littered with pop culture references.
Yeah.
And that's why, you have the cat saying, oh, behave. And this was one of them, and this is one of the worst of them. And, so yeah, my main problems with the movie is the character of the cat, but there is so much else. They have to, extend the plot to feature length, and they do a really bad job at it where the two kids, who are played by fairly talented young actors, it was Dakota Fanning and Spencer Breslin. Spencer Breslin, I don't think, ever did another movie after this. Poor kid, but, the movie was not his fault.
It was probably because he got traumatized.
Yeah,
the movie.
That's true.
I would be.
I can't believe Dakota Fanning, came back to acting after having to, be on with Mike Myers on set every day as a giant cat. Anyway, the whole plot is that, like, their mother, who I think is played by Missy Pyle, and, like, she's, like, just basically a total slut. And she, like, her boyfriend is Alec Baldwin, who's evil and, like, wants to steal her fortune or something. And so they and the cat have to stop Alec Baldwin. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but this is my point. Is like, especially when we're talking about bad adaptations, being inaccurate to the book, that's okay if you do it right. Being unfaithful to the book sometimes, all those things. Just taking a giant piss over everything one of the most beloved authors in history did is... like, there's a level of disrespect to it that just makes me angry.
I'm just thinking back to our own little machinima project about the Grapes of Wrath right now.
Yes. Well, that's true. Okay. Yes, Sean and I were not fans of the Grapes of Wrath when we read it and made a machinima project of it. But I will say this. Our Grapes of Wrath adaptation had more to do with the book John Steinbeck wrote than The Cat in the Hat did with anything Dr. Seuss did in his whole life.
And at least... our movie was funny.
Yes, our movie was funny. You can find it on blip.tv, the Grapes of Wrath Halo edition. I hope it's still up there. I haven't checked lately. No, but, yeah, Cat in the Hat, I don't know what else. It's been so long.
Yeah, for me, it's like completely, I've like filed away in that compartment where all those like early 2000s, just like candy-coated pop culture bullshit kids movies went into.
And this was a movie that was directed by Bo Welch, who is one of the great production designers of all time. I don't think he's directed anything since, and I even think he's done less production design. Like, this really hurt his career, and I don't know if he's completely to blame, because the production design on the movie is occasionally interesting, but it's also garish. Like, it's bright and colorful, but it's, garish and ugly, too. And that's, Dr. Seuss was bright and colorful, but I don't think it ever got to a point where you would describe it as garish or sort of unseemly. It's a bad movie, and I was reminded of it because it just came out on Blu-ray. Someone took the time. Yes.
Oh my God, who would want to see that?
Yeah. And apparently it has a really great transfer. Like, and that's what the reviewer I was reading was like, why would you put this much effort into the Cat in the Hat to give us this, like, pristine HD print?
It's like, how could you watch that with, like, Mike Myers and the cat suit in high definition and, like, not, like... gouge your eyes out.
Yeah, and I really want to stress how scary the cat is in this movie. The cat is supposed to be a fun, comforting figure, and he is, in a different version of this, he would be the killer. He would be like, the Chucky-esque killer.
I mean, honestly, he really could have been a slasher villain.
Yeah.
Like, if they had
with his tail.
if they had not been branded Cat in the Hat, and it was, like, obviously, like, a Cat in the Hat, like, ripoff. Yeah. Like Cat in the Spats or something.
And then, you get into all the stuff that, we have this rising, epidemic of, child sexual abuse, and the Cat in the Hat in this movie seems like he very honestly could be a sex offender, and there are creepy undertones to it.
I mean, it might just be that Mike Myers is like a really weird fetish thing or something. He just had to get it out of his system, so it's like, fuck it, we're going to make Cat in the Hat.
So he could
play the cat.
So he could go do the Love Guru.
It's like, it was part of like his therapy or something.
Yeah. But, yeah, don't watch it, please. Okay, Sean, you want to give us one?
Okay, so mine, let's talk about Gamera the Invincible.
Okay.
This is I haven't been into them for a while, but I used to really, really love the Daikaiju, like giant Japanese monster movies, characterized epically by Godzilla. And I love all the Godzilla movies. Most of them are pretty terrible, I'll admit that, but they're usually really fun, and they've got a nice heart. Gamera the Invincible is like the shit stain on the Daikaiju monster franchise. Like, it's just absolutely terrible. It's one of the most boring movies I've ever seen in my entire life, and most of my bottom ones are just movies that are dreadfully boring, but I somehow convinced myself to watch them when I was a kid. Because I didn't know any better, and it's like, Gamera is like, oh, this is kind of like Godzilla, it's gotta be okay. And then there's like, it's all about Gamera's like protecting this little kid, and they sing a fucking song. It's just, and the thing is, like, they did the thing where it's like, they try to make the monster sympathetic, but it's not one of the ones where Gamera's fighting anybody. Like, you can make Godzilla sympathetic when he's fighting another monster and, like, saving people. Trying to, like, it's like trying to make the original Godzilla movie where Godzilla's sympathetic, where he's, like, the metaphor for, like, a nuclear bomb, and trying to make the nuclear bomb sympathetic. Because Gamera's, like, running around killing people, destroying Tokyo, and somehow it's like he's got this friendship with this little kid, and the little kid's like, he's just misunderstood while he's eating his entire family. It's like, it's a terrible, boring movie that makes no sense, and it's just awful. But if you watch the Mystery Science Theater episode of it, that's hilarious. All the Gamera Mystery Science Theater ones are hilarious. So those are really good ways to watch those movies. Do not watch it without Mystery Science Theater. You will. I mean, you're not going to just get, like, more than 10 minutes through it unless you're, like, 10 years old and can stand that stuff.
Okay. You were talking about boring movies. I'm going to go with one, too, that's, like, oppressively dull. This is one that I guarantee you've never heard of because it was so bad it never even got a DVD release. This is one I had to review for the Colorado Kids. It was called Evergreen.
Yeah,
and
heard of that.
No, you shouldn't. I don't remember much about it at all. Wikipedia doesn't even have an entry for it. They have an entry for a 1934 British musical film.
For a second, I thought that was the movie you're talking about. I was like, wait, you had to... How old are you?
No.
Colorado Kids?
No, I used to write for this paper called the Colorado Kids, and so I was sent to review movies.
Back during the Great Depression.
Yes. This is a 2004 movie, and I don't remember much about it at all. It's just I've always, like, there are movies where you just know you carry hatred with you long after you remember plot details. Here's what I remember. There was this girl, apparently named Kate, according to the credited cast on IMDb. It does have an IMDb entry. But anyway.
I mean, everything's got an IMDb
that's true.
entry.
If it didn't, that would be truly pathetic. Anyway. But, so there's this girl, and I think she has to go live with her grandmother, I think, or something. And she, like, is just always arguing with her grandmother, and nothing ever happens. She's like a teenager. She goes out and gets drunk or something, and then she comes home, and she's like, you don't understand me. And they argue, and they bicker, and it's like, the acting is unbelievably terrible. This is one of those indies that, people like say, oh, indie cinema is so great. No. I just want to make it clear.
Some of, like, the really... It's like you only ever see the really good ones.
Yes.
Those are the ones you only ever hear about.
Yeah. Little Miss Sunshine, yes, is a fantastic indie film. However, if you went to the film festival where that premiered at, I am positive that everything playing around it was bad. Because indie also means inexperienced. And this movie was shot poorly. It was acted poorly. It had no plot to speak of. Like, we talk about movies that have bad plots. It's impressive to see a movie that has no plot. This is a movie that had no plot. Oh my God. It is, to this day, the only movie I have ever walked out of.
Oh, wow.
I waited.
Out on the movie ever.
Okay. I was younger. Like, I would never do that today. I would sit through it and then write a bad review. I was much younger, but like, we watched an hour of it and left. It was also, they only projected it, if I remember, through like a satellite connection, so it started half an hour late, which made us angry to begin with. But yeah, like, so I'm looking at trivia on IMDb. No, they don't have much, if there's anything interesting. But yeah, it was never really released wide, obviously. I don't even remember. I remember saw it at a big movie theater, but it didn't actually ever play there, I don't think. So
I do like how the male lead's name is Chat.
Oh God, I remember. God, like his name, like that's one of the, like it triggered something in me. Like I remember that, and he was like just a total fucking prick. And like, yeah,
that's not a name.
And if I remember correctly, there was also just a lot of the stereotypical teenage bullshit. Like you've seen in every teen movie ever, where like the guy wants to have sex and the girl doesn't, and then it becomes this big deal, and then it's this drama about it, and it's like, I'm not saying that isn't a real thing that happens and stuff, but like. In movies, that's been done so much in teen dramas. You have to do it well. Mm-hmm. And this wasn't done well. Yeah. This was just terrible. So we all have movies like this. That's Evergreen. Ruined this beautiful city of Evergreen forever for me. I guess. I don't think they actually. I don't remember if the like title Evergreen is ever explained, because I know it's not set in Colorado. That was something I remembered. Was like we thought, oh, it must be set in Colorado. No, it's not.
It's just one of those movies where they had no idea what the fuck to call it. So it's like just
the one thing IMDb says is the spec script was called Avon Calling.
So. See, at least that's like a bullshit title that sounds like a bullshit title.
Right.
Like Evergreen sounds like it could be about something.
Yeah. So
like a tree superhero.
That would be interesting. Okay. I'm very interested to hear about the next movie on your list.
Okay, this one. I'm kind of cheating because I've only ever seen this movie as a Mystery Science Theater episode. But I realize I've seen tons of bad movies, but only through that show.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, I'll pick one, and it's the worst one I've seen through Mystery Science Theater. It was from their very first season. I think it's like their second or third episode. It's The Robot versus the Aztec Mummy. And if I had seen this without the riffing, this might be like up in like my top 3 worst movies I've ever seen, or most hated. This is the most boring film I've ever seen in my time. Like, even Mystery Science Theater couldn't save it. Yeah. Like, I was hoping it would get really funny. It never got funny. And that's the crime about a movie called The Robot versus the Aztec Mummy, is that the fight between the robot and the Aztec Mummy is like 30 seconds long at the very end of the film, and it's like they kind of like push each other in this tomb, and then it's over.
I was gonna say, that title sounds very exciting.
Yeah, it sounds like, oh, this sounds like a perfect B movie. Yeah. And then later I like researched it afterwards, because I'm like, what the fuck movie did I just watch? And apparently it's an installment in a long-running series about this like fucking Aztec mummy, and it totally made sense now, because like half the movie is flashbacks, and now it's like, oh, those are not flashbacks, those are the other fucking movies in the franchise that they just cut out bits of it to explain the plot for this one. So basically the entire movie is you watching the previous movies in the series to build up to the conflict between the robot and the Aztec mummy, and it like explains all the history of the Aztec mummy that makes this total fucking bullshit. There's like the only mildly interesting part is the one where I'm sure like this is like a completely different movie that was in no way related to the Aztec mummy movies, but there's like it's the backstory to the robot, which is kind of interesting because it had like this really terrible actor playing this evil scientist making this robot. But it was just terrible. You're just watching movies building up to like a 30-second battle to the movie that you're actually supposed to be watching. So there's no real plot. or the little plot that there is spread out across like 5 minutes of original footage, and most of that is spent watching people wandering around in a fucking graveyard looking for the tomb of the Aztec mummy, which just happens to be lying in a cemetery that looks suspiciously like a cemetery you'd find in the Midwest. Oh.
But there's an Aztec mummy there.
Yeah, there's an Aztec mummy there,
right.
And they bring the robot. I don't even know why the robot has to.
What kind of robot is this?
It's a good question. It's a cardboard and silver paint robot.
Nice.
That
I could
clearly the actor playing that in the robot suit had no way of seeing where he was, so he's just kind of like stumbling around, bumping into the Aztec mummy as he pushes him.
That's great. Well, you've just talked about a movie that was so boring it made you angry.
Yeah, it was.
So I feel
terrible.
I'm also going to talk about a movie that is so like legendarily boring that it makes me angry, and this is The Blair Witch Project. Now, before I get a bunch of fucking hate mail from all you stupid people who like this movie, and I'm sorry, there's no other word for you. That may be a little harsh.
Yeah, that might be a little
okay. But I know I'm going to get this. People are like, that movie's so scary. It's so great. No. The Blair Witch Project is one of the worst movies I have ever seen. The marketing for The Blair Witch Project was brilliant. Those are two different things. The marketing for The Blair Witch Project was fucking genius. They actually made people believe this was a documentary. And then for the, first week it was in theaters, people were scared by it. Now, when you remove that, and we're talking about the movie as itself, not as the experience it was for people in 1999. But the actual movie, nothing happens. This is literally a movie where nothing happens for 90 minutes.
Wait, so what happened in the movie?
Nothing.
Oh, okay.
I just want to underline that.
All right.
It's three teenagers. They're gonna go shoot a documentary about the Blair Witch. They get into the forest and they shout the F word. They just shout fuck for 90 minutes. And then I think one of them dies.
Sounds like a Transformers podcast. Just screaming fuck for 90 minutes. And then
ours was more coherent, though. And
fucking fuck.
It's basically like they're arguing, like they get lost in the forest and they're arguing about the map, and they'll see a twig and they'll be like, that twig was left by the Blair Witch, and then they'll yell fuck for 20 minutes while they're arguing about it. And then they'll get lost, and one of them loses the map, and then they beat up that. They don't know that nothing that interesting would happen. I'm making that up, but they're in a tent, and then I don't know, one of them just goes missing. Again, you don't see any of this. You just the camera turns on at one point. It's like someone's gone missing, and then there's the moment everyone remembers where the girl turns the camera to herself, and she's got snot running down her face, and she's like, "I'm sorry, Mom and Dad," and it's all these things where they're trying to tell you that stuff has happened, but nothing ever does happen in the entire movie. And then at the end, they go into this house. And you hear a sound, and the camera drops, and it's over, and it's like, oh, they're dead. That's so scary. But nothing happened. And I'm also mad at the Blair Witch Project because it started this stupid fucking found footage genre, which I think is one of the stupidest styles you can shoot a movie in.
Yeah.
And Chronicle is the latest found footage movie. It's this found footage superhero film. Chronicle is far and away the best found footage movie. The found footage aspect of it is the worst part of that movie. And if it had been made straight, I think it could have been a masterpiece superhero movie. It is held back by that found footage thing. Because there is no logical reason why any human being would be filming during some of these moments. Like in the Blair Witch Project, for some reason the girl keeps it on while they're just sitting in their tent yelling fuck at each other. And, that is the whole movie. But, Blair Witch Project made a bunch of money because the marketing was good. I've never heard anyone actually, list good things about the movie. They just thought, it was scary because the marketing said it was real. Mm-hmm. Well, that's not what the movie is. And so this found footage genre just makes no sense to me. I've seen now that this is what I was getting to, is because Chronicle is really good. I've seen some people write articles saying, well, the found footage genre, see, it makes sense because this goes back to the literary tradition of Dracula and Frankenstein, where it's people's journals. No, it makes sense when someone writes a journal. That was a practice in that time where people wrote everything they did in journals.
Yeah.
That was something that happened. We do not go around with cameras just filming everything we do all day. Especially all these found footage movies are about periods of crisis. Like, I liked Cloverfield. Why was the guy filming everything they did in Cloverfield?
My favorite part of Cloverfield was that the guy was named Hud.
Yes, that was funny.
That was the best part of that movie.
So, anyway, and Blair Witch Project, they at least try to justify it that they're filming a documentary, but that quickly becomes, again, they're not filming stuff you would usually film for a documentary. They're filming each other saying fuck.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen the Blair Witch Project, but I've seen a few found footage movies, and the only one I've seen that I've liked is Troll Hunter. Okay. Have you seen that?
No.
It's a like kind of a quirky Norwegian film, and I think it does use the conceit of the found footage thing pretty well because it's all about like a conspiracy about trolls and stuff. But I think just like I think there's either that concept could be used really well. Yeah. I don't know how, but it definitely hasn't yet. And every movie I have seen using it has been held back by that conceit. I mean, even Troll Hunter, it's like it kind of makes sense because they're trying to unveil this conspiracy, so they're trying to get as much footage as they can. But it's just, it usually ends up being really distracting.
Right.
And I think they've sometimes focused too much on making... Like, I think the worst part of every found footage movie I've seen is the very end where they try to set up how you've seen this footage.
Right.
You don't need to do that. You don't. There's no reason to try to set up how you're seeing this now.
I will say Chronicle did it very, very well. I still think there are limitations not even that film could overcome. Like, the ending, they don't do the camera falls to the ground and someone finds it. They do a really... The ending of Chronicle is really cool, how they do that. But here's the other thing, though, is that there's no internal logic in Chronicle for how we're seeing it, because it's multiple footage sources, and there's, like, one of them, you see the film get destroyed early on in the movie, so you have no idea how we're finding it, you know?
That's one of the things, like, I actually think they focus too much on trying to get away from that, and then it gets distracting when when something like that happens, now it's like, oh, well, now there's no way I could have seen that. If they don't bother with trying to show how you're seeing this, like, I don't give a shit how I'm seeing this, I'm watching the movie.
Right.
You can use that technique to try to give a certain effect to the film, make it feel more realistic, but you don't need to explain away how I'm seeing this movie right now. We didn't have to have a fucking chapter in Dracula about how now we're reading all these journals.
And that's, and what Chronicle does that's creative is that the whole idea is that the main character, his father's abusive, he's using a camera to try to document his father's abuse so he could maybe take it to the authorities or something. And then he starts documenting, he's like a social outcast, he's trying to document his abuse at school, and it becomes sort of like an obsession for him, and it's a really interesting character dynamic, what the camera does for him. But because there are moments he's not there for, they have another character who we know literally nothing about, who also likes to film stuff for no apparent reason. Like, someone comes to her door, and she just films for, 10 minutes. Why? I don't know. And then at the end, I don't want to spoil it, but they have to come up with a new way to find the footage. So it's all like security cameras and like cell phone cams, and it's like, and they have to cut every 5 seconds, and it's so annoying. But
Yeah, I think we got off topic.
We did. But the point here is that the Blair Witch Project is a terrible, terrible movie.
All right, then.
That's the point. And Sean, I want to hear about your next one.
Okay, my next one. This is Sinbad: The Golden Voyage, and this is a movie that I'm sure most people haven't seen. It's from like either the 60s or the 70s. The one movie I really, really love that I grew up watching, and I think it's a really good kind of old school adventure type movie, is The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad. And it's just it's got the whole kind of Ray Harryhausen effects with the stop motion and stuff like that. And it's just a really good kind of just fun adventure movie about Sinbad goes to an island and has to save a princess, and there's a genie, and then like a dragon and a cyclops fight. It's awesome. Sinbad and the Golden Voyage, it's boring. It's really boring, and it's a really, really fucking disappointing movie because there's no reason for it to be boring. You can do anything you want. You can have Sinbad. Sinbad's, he's just kind of your classic sort of roguish hero, and then he gets to fight monsters, or he gets to see monsters fight other monsters, and it's just like all you need is to have the Ray Harryhausen effects. But, like, almost the entire movie is them on a fucking ship, just on a ship, waiting until you get to see the monsters. And then when you do get the monsters, they're just really disappointing. They reuse the Cyclops, and it's just like, oh, well, that's great. You reuse the effect from the last movie. That's nice for the 15-minute climax. You don't get any sort of, like, really wow moments, no big action climaxes, no big monster fights. And it's just such a disappointing movie for me when I was a kid, because it's like, oh, that's literally was one of my favorite movies, still is one of my favorite movies, because it's just a perfect adventure film. And the Sinbad the Golden Voyage took all of that and was like, fuck it, we've still got the ship, and we still got the Cyclops, we still got a camera. Fuck it, let's make a movie.
Yeah.
And that's what they did. And it was sad.
I'm sorry, Sean.
It was a sad day when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need to talk about it more?
No, I think that's
You're over it?
It's
Okay.
just... Yeah, it's just another line in the dull movie that could have been really fun. And I think that's the tragedy of all the movies I've mentioned so far, is that they could have been really fun, and they just fucked it up.
Well, we've been talking about boring movies for a while. Yeah. I'm going to switch to 2 movies by the same director that are far from boring, but are still incredibly, incredibly bad. I'm talking, of course, of Baz Luhrmann's Moulin Rouge and Romeo plus Juliet. By God!
I forgot that the title for the
By God, yeah,
Juliet.
I know.
They do the plus. I forgot about that.
And of course, Moulin Rouge...
It's all hip and modern.
Yeah, Moulin Rouge, I forgot, has an exclamation point at the end. Because, Baz Luhrmann, the movie itself wasn't pretentious enough. They had to put a fucking exclamation point at the end of it. Now, I know both of these movies have more people who love them than hate them.
Yeah.
But, again, I don't fathom even a little bit what people see in these. Maybe a little bit with Moulin Rouge, but not with Romeo plus Juliet. I mean, I don't know. Romeo plus Juliet, I've sometimes described it as Shakespeare for stupid people. Because, if the language is too complicated for you, you can look at the bright colors and Leonardo DiCaprio's chest. So,
Yeah, it's like, I've seen Romeo plus Juliet, and I don't hate it that much. Okay. I think I didn't love it. I'm certainly never going to see it again. But it's like, I kind of liked the idea, but I hated the execution. I didn't like the style. They kind of went for like a faux Tarantino-ish type of thing, and tried it all.
Well, except Tarantino, has shots that last longer than 5 seconds.
Yeah, it's like, but like they tried. I remember they did like a thing where at the beginning, where like every time a character's introduced, it like freeze frames and like a graphics card comes and it's like Mercutio. Yeah. And it's like, this is Mercutio.
Right.
It's like I kind of like the idea of transplanting the story into a more modern day setting, but I don't like how they handled they tried to make it really hip 90s hipster.
And I've never...
translating the dialogue, they should have just, not used the same dialogue.
Right. That's the problem, is that I've seen all these movies, people keep trying to do it where they turn Shakespeare into modern day but keep the dialogue. That does not work.
It completely holds the movie back, because it just makes the tone really chaotic.
And then it also means that, you're never set in a real, a version of reality. Mm-hmm. Like, Romeo plus Juliet is supposed to be it's like, they call it Verona Beach, but it's obviously on, an alternate Earth or something. The laws of physics don't even seem to apply at some points. And then, but I've seen Ralph Fiennes, who is a phenomenal actor, he directed a version of Shakespeare's Coriolanus last year. And it was set in modern day. And Coriolanus is a fantastic play. It was filled with great actors. Vanessa Redgrave, in particular, was phenomenal as Coriolanus' mother. But they decided to set it in modern day, and then it's just really weird. They use the old language, and it just doesn't work. And that is that was not hyperactive like Romeo plus Juliet. That was very distinguished, but it didn't work at all. Romeo plus Juliet, though, here's what I hate. You kind of went through it all. Mm-hmm. The style is so overbearing. It just... Romeo and Juliet, I should say, is my favorite Shakespeare play. I really love it a lot. And this is a case where they didn't put any thought whatsoever into what the subtext of that play is, how the characters develop. They just wanted to make a movie with bright, flashy colors and pop songs.
And I have to say, the one thing that really made me want to, punch this movie was when they made a pun about post-haste. And it was like a letter, and it was like post-haste.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it was fucking...
Yeah.
Funny.
It's bad. The acting is, I'm not going to say horrendous all around. I think Claire Danes is actually a really good Juliet. And Leonardo DiCaprio, this is early DiCaprio where he was good, but not kind of the great actor he would become. Mm-hmm. Neither of them, though, are Shakespearean actors. No one in this movie is, and no one in this movie is good at reciting Shakespeare. And I don't know if that's their fault, but, I mean, that's just the style. Even if they were, they don't have the time to do it, because Baz Luhrmann is do this soliloquy in 5 seconds so we can cut away. So they have to mumble through it. Roger Ebert's review of this movie, by the way, is fantastic if you've never read it. He just talks about mumbling Shakespeare and how terrible it is to watch, but yeah.
I think one of the biggest problems with the movie is that they're really trying to mix styles that don't. And the problem is, trying to bring Shakespeare's dialogue into like a really fast-paced, energetic movie that they're trying to do. Like theater dialogue is very specific. Theater's a very different medium than film, even though it seems like, oh well, it's just people talking and you can see them, and so it's basically a movie. They're just on a stage. No, in theater you had like everything has to be spoken because you don't get the nuance of subtle facial emotion. Everything is much more over the top because it has to be, and so you can't just translate dialogue wholesale and speeches wholesale from Shakespeare and then just put it into this different style without completely adjusting the style to completely cater to the language, because everything has to be about the language in stage play.
Yeah.
And so just Baz Luhrmann did not do that well at all. The movie completely falls apart.
We had to watch this in English class, and I had trouble getting, like, I thought of, like, skipping class, like, just getting up and walking out. Like, thank God, like, Sean was there so we could just riff on it together. Yeah. I think that's how we survived it. But,
wasn't there, like, a really crazy, like, Mercutio was just insane, like, he's, like, kind of like a cross-dresser, and they were, like, on acid or something.
Yes.
It's like, what the fuck is this doing?
Yeah, Mercutio's across.
You're, like, completely throwing the focus all the way off of the actual plot of the movie by doing this.
Yeah. They do
being weird for the sake of being weird.
Right. I hate this movie with every fiber of my being. It's bad. Claire Danes looks good in it. I guess that's the thing for men.
If you're a chick, Leo probably looks pretty good. Yes.
Well, I remember all the times where Leo's shirt will just come unbuttoned magically and like show his chest.
Yeah, I do remember specifically. There's like 20 scenes in that movie where with Leonardo DiCaprio just like standing on a beach with like his like white button-up shirt just like off, just like flowing in the wind.
Yes, which at least they're being shameless about that. So whatever. Moulin Rouge is even worse in my mind, and I have watched Moulin Rouge twice in my life, and I can't believe this is shame I'm feeling admitting this. Once was on a bus to Disneyland for a musical trip, and it was...
Oh, God. If I had to see it with that audience?
Yes.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Do you feel bad for me
I would have killed every single person in that bus. I would have killed all of them.
This is great that, Sean knows all the people.
You didn't, like, I knew you hated this movie, and I haven't seen it all the way through. I've seen most of it, and I really don't like this movie either. Yeah. But I think I dislike it for reasons that I can see aren't objective to the film. And it's like, can I give my take on Moulin Rouge and the reason I don't?
And then can I go into my story again?
Yeah. Okay. Yes. I just really quick. I want to just like me personally. I really don't like musical theater. I don't know why. It's just like the style just completely doesn't gel with me. It doesn't. It's way too over the top and silly, but trying to not do over-the-top silly things. And I just really don't like musical theater. It's just me. And Moulin Rouge is like a testament to everything in musical theater that musical theater people just love and adore, and I just really, really don't like. And it's like, it's like the epitome of something that I don't like, but it's not for any sort of objective reason that I can clarify. Yeah. I just don't like musical theater, and so I despise Moulin Rouge. And I don't like the part of people that really love the kind of stuff in Moulin Rouge, which is why I would have killed every single person on that bus.
Yes. Okay, so back to the bus.
Right.
Let me set the scene for this, because you're going to like this. I am not only trapped on this bus for 18 hours, and, all the choir girls have control of the TV. Which, there are TVs like every couple rows. Mm-hmm. And then if the sound turns on, I couldn't even put in my headphones and listen to my iPod. That's how loud the sound was. So you had to watch the movies. I finally got them to watch Dark Knight at one point, but that was also at 2 in the morning when everyone was asleep. And I was like, thank God, a good movie. But no, we also had to watch, what is it? It's, We Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry. It was bad. But okay. I also had a broken leg on this trip. Oh, yeah. So I am stuck on this bus with a broken leg. I, can barely move around. And this was a bad break. I broke 3 bones in my leg. I had just had surgery on it. I'm on this bus. I have to watch Moulin Rouge. That is like, shouldn't that be, isn't that in the Geneva Convention? You don't do that to someone, like even a terrorist?
That's like torture.
Yeah. And yes, Sean knows all the people I'm talking about, and these are, basically all the choir girls and musical theater enthusiasts and all that who were on this bus and wanted to watch Moulin Rouge. And of course, they think it's the greatest thing of all time. We also had to watch Andrew Lloyd Webber's Phantom of the Opera.
Oh my God! I haven't seen that movie, but put it on the fucking list. Put it on the list.
I can talk about it because I actually do love the play, but we'll get into it now. So I watched Moulin Rouge and I was like, this is the stupidest fucking thing I've ever seen. And I will say, I am not like a musical theater enthusiast. There are musicals I enjoy. And I don't dismiss the whole genre. There are musicals I enjoy. I completely see Sean's point of view on this. There are musicals I enjoy, and I still hated Moulin Rouge with a passion. But anyway, this is such an acclaimed movie. It won all sorts of awards. It was so acclaimed. Yeah. And I was like, maybe I'm missing something. It was on a bus. I had a broken leg. Maybe
you're seeing it with the worst possible audience you could see that movie.
So I got the DVD, and I went home and I watched the DVD. I was like, this is one of the worst things I've ever seen. And I don't know how deep I'm going to go in with criticism of Moulin Rouge because there is an internet personality called the Nostalgia Critic, that guy with the glasses.com, who is one of the funniest guys on the internet.
Yeah.
I can't recommend his stuff highly enough, and the best thing he has ever done, bar none, is his review of Moulin Rouge.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Which is one of the most epic internet productions I've ever seen. It's basically a musical review of a musical, and it's fantastic. He gets into, not only does he get into all the flaws really well, he also shows that not even the most ardent fans of this movie can actually defend it if you bring up its flaws, and that's what I loved about it, is that people just love the colors and the experience. Yeah. They don't. It falls apart if you point out one flaw, because that one flaw will inevitably run through every scene in the movie. But I mean, obviously, there's the style. Some people think the style was fun. I think that when you don't have a single shot that lasts more than 2 or 3 seconds, that's annoying. Yeah. The really bright colors, that's annoying. There is cool production design in the movie. You don't get to see any of it because they cut every 2 or 3 seconds. The songs they choose are often annoying and hyperactive, and there's a 4 or 5 minute scene where they have Jim Broadbent, the great Jim Broadbent, sing Like a Virgin. And why? I don't know. They never explain it, but he wants to sing Like a Virgin, so goddamn it, he's going to do it. So the songs, I don't know, their sort of whole idea of love, it's supposed to be a movie about love, but they don't ever define love or get into what makes love love. They don't...
Love.
Yeah. There's no actual commentary on the nature of love or of romance. You know what I mean? And it is well acted, I will say that, by some of the cast. The side characters are annoying as fuck, but Ewan McGregor is one of my favorite actors. He's very good in the movie. He actually sells the story sometimes when the story has no business being sold. And Nicole Kidman is made to do some very embarrassing stuff that I feel bad for her about, but she is, in some moments, really fantastic. And I am a Nicole Kidman fan, despite some of her bad career choices. I think she's a pretty fantastic actress. And she does some good work in this movie. But, it's the style of this movie is so annoying that even if it had something to say, there's no way it could say it through that style. Mm-hmm. That's not style over substance. That's style beating substance.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is that is the thing, that it is complete. It's all about the style, and that's and that's a lot of the things. Just why I don't like musical theater that much is that it goes. I always feel like whenever they do a fucking song, it's it just completely destroys any sort of investment I have into what's going on. And that's just me personally. I understand that if people can connect to media that way, then.
But here's the thing,
one of the problems is that the only time I kind of admit okay, the musical's okay, or I can really see how you can like this, is if the songs are written for the fucking musical. If it's it's specifically tailored to the event, and then it's specifically character oriented and stuff like that, I can accept that.
Here's
Moulin Rouge, they just use pop songs.
Right.
They don't, so it doesn't relate to anything specific.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to say is, even if you like musical theater, I don't know how you like Moulin Rouge, because it is much worse than any musical theater, I think, or most. Here's the thing, you look at a really great acclaimed musical like Sweeney Todd or something, the music is very organically coming out of the characters, the style is very consistent across the board, and it's fairly laid back. I mean, the songs are there, but they feel like it's not just someone explodes into Like a Virgin or something. Mm-hmm. And I think with some of the other big ones like Phantom of the Opera, there's a similar degree of that, where it's grounded in a way Moulin Rouge is not. And, and then Moulin Rouge decides in the last half hour it wants to be profound. So, the girl has to die, and he has to publicly shame her for no good reason. And, again, watch the Nostalgia Critics review. He gets into all this. There are so many plot holes. My God, the plot of this movie makes no fucking sense. Everything about it is bad, bad, bad. And I... Is this the movie that killed modern editing? I wonder. Because, there was a time when... Like, I am not of the school of thought that says, like, editing, in the 50s was much better than it is today. I think... Just because editing was more measured once upon a time doesn't mean we have to keep editing always that measured.
Mm-hmm.
I like that we can have movies now where you can have more elements to a conversation scene or something. More editing is not necessarily worse, but there is a degree where, like with action movies and musicals and all this, where we have to have a cut every 3 or 4 seconds. Yeah. And I think Moulin Rouge was at the start of that. And it is one of the most annoying stylistic things you can do in a movie. So, Again, watch the Nostalgia Critics review. It's about 45 minutes. It's one of his longest ones, but fuck is it funny. Do you remember the name of the guy who is the co-host on it?
Brintle Floss.
Yes, he's funny, and of course the Nostalgia Chick is always funny. So, good stuff.
It's funny stuff, yes.
Yes. So...
Can we just move to Phantom of the Opera right now since we're...
Yes, go talk about Phantom of the Opera.
Okay, so I haven't actually seen... the movie, well, like the new movie.
Yeah.
But I have seen, and I am a huge fan of the original, the silent movie, I think I saw that when I was like 13 or 14 years old, and that movie is just brilliant. It's just, it breathes style, but not in an annoying way. It's perfectly paced, and it's a great, great horror film, especially when it gets to near the end, and it's just, it's a brilliant, brilliant movie, but the thing I despise about the new Andrew Lloyd Webber thing is that, I guess it's not that new, but it made the cardinal sin of making the Phantom sexy, and that's just fucked up.
Okay.
It's like, I don't understand that approach of trying to make the Phantom sexy when it's not a sexy character. You see Lon Chaney in his makeup in the original movie, that's something you try to make that sexy. That's terrifying. Phantom of the Opera is horror. It's a horror classic. Yeah. And trying to make that sexy is just fucked up. It's fucked up. And you just, completely ruin this really, really great horror classic by trying to bring it to the musical theater style and, you trying to make him really sympathetic and all the girls love him. It's like, oh, he's the Phantom and he's got his, sexy half mask on.
Okay.
It's just,
it's disgusting. Was there, a girl in the original movie, that had any sort of,
Oh, she hated the Phantom. Okay. She was completely disgusted by the Phantom. Okay. He was, killing people, and it's a great film. I will say, I'm not familiar with it. I really want to watch it now that I hear you talk about it. Is it on Netflix? I think so, yeah.
Okay. And anyway, what I've always sort of appreciated about the musical, and I'm not as crazy about it as some people, is just, I do kind of, it's sort of like the Beauty and the Beast story. Not in this, I don't know, I agree the sexiness part of it is weird, but just sort of the examination of outcasts, I think the play does well. But was this original story a story about outcasts and that?
It's part of that, but it's not. It's not trying to make the Phantom sympathetic because the Phantom, he has the deformities, but he spent his life. Basically, he spent his life as an assassin and he's killing people. That's what the Phantom did, and then he has this obsession with this woman.
Okay.
But it's just rephrase. I get the outcast story, and I think it's really overdone because we do that story every 2 seconds nowadays. Yeah. But trying to repurposing that classic but not bringing the spirit of the classic to your new modern interpretation, I just find that really criminal, and I don't like it. And
here's my problem with the Andrew Lloyd Webber film, which is not one of the worst movies I've ever seen at all. It's a fine movie. If you like the play, I'm sure you'll like the movie. Whatever. They could have gone a lot darker with it within the confines of the musical, I think. That was doing film. I think you could have taken the music and then done some adaptation stuff with it and done something really interesting. But instead, it's such a tame version of it where Gerard Butler's Phantom. When they take off his mask, there is no deformity. Did you know that?
Yeah,
it's just basically a sunburn.
And that's the thing. No, that doesn't work.
Yeah, I think you could have done something with it, and they really didn't. It's a fairly tame adaptation. Emmy Rossum is quite good as the girl. Gerard Butler not so much as the Phantom because he can't really sing. But we're not really talking about the movie.
And then there's that whole thing about the big the ba-da-ba-ba-bum line from the I guess it's the overture.
Yeah.
That's completely taken from Pink Floyd, but whatever.
Okay.
That's Yeah, that was just like my random rant. I haven't seen like one single. I mean, I've seen shots from the movie, but I haven't seen any sequence of edits from the more modern fan of the opera movie, and I have no intention to.
Okay. Well,
we got off track.
We did. I'm going to talk now about, since you just talked about something, it wasn't really a movie. But,
well, I talked about a really good movie and how people have shat on it in modern years.
Hey, you know what? We're talking about a good story that people have shat on.
Yeah.
We'll go with Aragon, the movie.
Yeah, that's a really bad movie.
Did you see it?
Yeah, if I had thought of it, I probably would have put it on my list.
Well, we can share it now.
Okay.
Aragon, the book by Christopher Paolini, yes, it is derivative. Just shut the fuck up and let me talk about why I like it, okay?
But it's derivative.
Yeah. Like, I hate people who just get stuck on that.
But it's derivative.
Mini stories, yeah. You know what I mean, though? People do this.
Yeah, I know.
It's a really fun book. It's just like, Christopher Paolini says he wrote it because he wanted a new fantasy book that he would like to read. I get that feeling. It's really enthusiastic for the genre, and it shows love for the genre. And it's got really good, well-drawn characters and fun relationships. There's a big death in the Aragon book that really hits hard. I think there's a lot of creativity, too. The way they treat dragons and stuff, that really is creative. It's not derivative at all. And I like all of that. So, and I really love the book. I have not read the last one yet. It just came out.
Yeah, I kind of dropped the series after the second book. I reread them fairly recently. I don't like them as much as I used to, but I used to really love the books.
Well, and again, I think they're aimed at people younger than us at this point. But the third one, if you ever want to go back and read it, is very good. It's too long, but after the first 200 pages or so, it gets going, and then it gets...
Sounds like people talking about Final Fantasy nowadays. It's after the first 30 hours, it gets pretty good.
Of course, it takes us less time to read 200 pages than it does to play 30 hours of Final Fantasy. You know what I mean? Anyway, but Aragon the movie, on the other hand, oh God, I'm struggling to think of a book to film adaptation that isn't The Cat in the Hat that I've hated more than this. It looks like a TV movie, for one. It's so ridiculously low budget and ineptly, the production design is awful. Saphira the dragon looks not anything like she's got feathers. I don't know how else to say it, but they made her look like a bird. The acting, I forget the name of the kid they had play Aragon. He's terrible. He's just utterly terrible.
He's the only person good in the movie is Jeremy Irons.
And even then they underuse him to a startling degree. And that's sad because Jeremy Irons is a perfect Brahm in a perfect world. When they get to the society under the mountain at the end, it's 3 people in a little base, and that is one of my favorite fantasy areas in any book I've ever read, is in Aragon, that land under the mountain. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
It's so cool how he describes it. That is real.
It's kind of like the Lonely Mountain, The Hobbit.
A little bit, but is the Lonely Mountain
Casa Doom?
Yeah. But but it's this whole society they've built in the mountain, and I like how he describes the levels.
But it's derivative.
Yeah. Anyway, and then in the movie, there's none of that at all. It's just, again, it's 3 people.
It's just I don't even remember all this. I mean, it's I would just remember it started off okay for maybe the first 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And then at some point, it just goes insane. It just goes, it's like they had maybe the first 50 pages of the book, and then they had to guess what's happening based on an outline of the rest of the plot, and then they just wrote a screenplay based on that.
No, it completely goes off book, but not in a good way. Lord of the Rings goes off book sometimes, but to great effect. This goes off book really ineptly, and again, there's no scale to it. One thing Aragon definitely has going for it is scale. This is a big journey, and there is no scale to this movie. They every town looks the same, and then when Brahm dies, there's no build up or winding down. It's just, I guess he's dead. It's awful. Do you have anything else to say?
No, it's just one of those situations where they clearly were just trying to bank on the name of the book, and they didn't put any effort. I mean, it really does. It looks like they had maybe everyone in the cast went into their couches and pulled out all the change they could, and that was the budget for the movie.
I know it. And I was so excited for this at the time, because I was younger and more gullible and trusting of the film industry, and I was this is one of my favorite, at the time it was one of my favorites, and I was this is going to be great, it's Aragon, it's going to be so fun. And then, you go in and see it, and it was 10 minutes in, you could tell. I remember just, this is a total nitpick, but,
Blue fingertips?
Yes. The opening credits think of how they do like opening credits for something like The Lord of the Rings, where it's like grand when they put that title up. And then at the end, you know, you come into Out of the Music to directed by Peter Jackson. It's like, hell yes it was. And it's epic. Like, they put that there and it has weight. In Aragon, it's like he's sleeping and they do like, they're going around his room and it's like, you know, doing the credits in the corner like a TV show. And like when it says Aragon, like there's this blue wisp that spells out the name in the like the lower left corner of the screen. And like, there's no, at that point, you've lost me. If that's how you want to present the title for your epic fantasy movie, fuck you.
It's like, oh shit, we completely forgot about the opening credits.
Yeah.
It's like, Bob, you're like, your teenage son has, like, he's taking a graphics design class, right? Yeah. Give him, like, the first 5 minutes of the movie and give him the credits.
Yeah.
Have him put him over them.
Yeah.
Bad
I've always wondered what would, like, a sequel to that look like. Like, when they actually have to go to, like, the Forest of the Elves and stuff. Like, it would just, like, be them in Vancouver. And
it's like they're in, like, some, like, park and you can see the highway just off in the background.
Yeah, no, it would be terrible. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Okay, you talk about your next movie.
Anyways. Yeah, so Aragon was really derivative. And so is the next movie I'm going to talk about, 9, which is a movie that you wouldn't think would be derivative, but it really, really is. This was the movie that it came out, I guess, a few years ago, maybe 2 years ago, that it was about a whole bunch, it was about 9 little, like, sack boy things, like, guys made out of little sacks. And they kind of, ran around a post-apocalyptic world. There's some robots, and that was kind of like the movie. It was basically just... And then also the entire marketing for the movie was really pathetic because all they ever touted for this movie was it was produced by Tim Burton. And that was it. It's just like, if you watched a trailer for the movie, it might show the director at like the very end, but it's like, no, it's like 9, produced by Tim Burton. He may have had some affiliation with this movie. It's like, it was just completely pathetic. The movie made absolutely no sense. It was all about a scientist. Like, this is one of the things that kind of is weird about Harry Potter that I don't, like, care that much about. But, like, it's this concept of you split your soul into pieces. How the fuck do you do that? How the fuck? Like, I'll accept that you can transfer your soul into another object. How do you fracture your soul and not die? That doesn't make any fucking sense. Even comic books wouldn't pull shit like that. You can't fracture your soul.
And we're talking about
pieces.
9, not Harry Potter.
Yeah, I know, but they do the same fucking thing in 9.
Okay.
How he fractures his soul into pieces, puts it into little puppets. I don't even remember fucking why. Because that's how they had the idea for the movie.
In the Harry Potter series,
I don't care that much.
Okay, you want to know the explanation?
No,
there's an explanation.
I don't give a fucking shit. You can say whatever explanation you want. It's gonna be stupid.
Big portion of the book.
I don't care.
All right.
Anyways, so yeah, the plot makes no fucking sense. The whole premise. It's like someone had an idea for, like, a Tim Burton movie that they thought would look really cool, is you have, like, the sack boy creatures living in this post-apocalyptic world. And so they had that idea, but they had no fucking clue how to set it up, so they're like, fuck it. Splits his soul up and puts it into little sack boy things. Well, why would he do that? How the fuck, we just need to make the fucking movie. We got Tim Burton signed on to produce. So, we just need to make the fucking movie, so he does it. He just fucking does it, and there are robots there. Why are there robots there? I don't fucking know, but there are. And then the best thing about the whole movie, though, is that they have this really happy ending when, like, 5 out of the 9 main characters die. So you have 4 left, and they have this ending where it's like, and this is after this takes place on Earth, and all the humans have been killed. Basically, after like it's basically like the Terminator apocalypse. All the humans are dead. It's like you would spend the entire movie in rubble. And like there are all these like little reminders of like how their people used to live in this world, but everyone's dead now. 5 of the 9 main characters have been killed off, and you have the 4 left, including Elijah Wood, because he was the main character, so you can't have him die because he gets the most money. And so they stand there and they're burying their fallen comrades, and then their like souls, I guess the fraction of that like one guy's soul go up into the sky, and then it starts raining. And it's like the music and everything like connotes you. It's like, oh, it's so happy because now it's raining. And then the movie ends and you're like, how is that happy? We already lost. What happens after that? Yes, okay, it rained. You've got 4 little Sackboy things living on a dead Earth. That's not a happy ending. The sad ending already happened. You can't have anything happy. You've got 4 fractions of one guy's soul running around on a planet. That's what's left at the end of this movie. But it just so clearly thought it had a cool sort of graphic design and kind of a cool conceit, a cool concept to run with. But then it had no idea what to do with it, so it just threw it on like a Hollywood template for an action movie. It just said, "Fuck it, we'll ship it out," and that was 9. I'm done.
So you want to talk about stories that make no sense and Hollywood money grabs?
Do you really need to segue every single one of these? Can you just go into the next one? We'll go into the next one then.
All right. I'm sorry. I like segues. They're fun. This is Whatever. This is X-Men Origins Wolverine.
I never saw this movie. If I did see it, it would have been on my list.
I know. God. This is one that hurt me so bad I don't even know where to start. But
start at the beginning.
Well, the beginning they show Wolverine pre-Civil War, and the whole thing is really fucking cheesy, and it's a story that could have been cool. But, alright, anyway, we're not going to start at the beginning. The film's main problem, I feel, is, A, it looks like it was made for maybe $5 million. And this was a big budget movie, too. But the person who directed it just had seemingly no knowledge of how to handle a budget, because it looks awful. So the scale and all that's wrong. But maybe the key problem is that they completely defanged or declawed Wolverine. Or they neutered him. Maybe that's a better term.
That gives me really bad...
I'm sorry. Well, here's the thing. You look at the Bryan Singer X-Men movies. What's the number one thing they got right? Hugh Jackman is a fucking awesome Wolverine.
Yeah.
Perfect casting. Mm-hmm. In this movie, he's a total pussy. There's no other word for it. Here's the example I always use. There's this whole story where his girlfriend dies at the hands of his brother, Sabretooth. And
they made Sabretooth his brother?
Yep.
Yeah, that was always kept really ambiguous in the comics.
Yeah, it's very explicit in the movie. And so Sabretooth kills his brother, or his lover, sorry. Mm-hmm. Sabretooth kills his girlfriend, and he's really mad. And he finally, he spends the whole movie trying to get revenge, and he finally gets to Sabretooth's lair, and it's like, if you know anything about Wolverine, I don't read the comics, but I do know enough about Wolverine to know that in this scenario, he would rip everyone's throats out in that room, mm-hmm. and, then smoke a cigar. That's what he would do, and he would have a fun time doing it. But instead, he gets there, and he finds out his girlfriend's still alive, and she had betrayed him, and he's really sad, and, the one tear runs down his face, and he walks outside, dejected. He's like, I'm going home.
I can't imagine the one tear scene with Wolverine. That doesn't compute. That doesn't even make sense.
I could be imagining that, but it sounds right for what happened in the scene. And, I want to be fair. If that isn't in the movie, I apologize to the filmmakers.
But they gave you the impression that it happened in the movie. That's almost...
and he walks outside, and he's all bummed out, and, it's like... Dead. Yeah, and that, to me, is like, what a total miscalculation of who Wolverine is. He wouldn't do that. He would be angrier than ever at that point.
Yeah. That is one of the dangers when you try to do Wolverine origin story. They did do Origins. Marvel released a graphic novel that's really, really well done. But it's one of the dangers of doing Wolverine before you know Wolverine nowadays is this temptation to make him a really different character and to show, why is he so angry now? It's Wolverine's basically always been fucking pissed off.
And they don't do that even. They don't even do that. He gets to the end and they don't give a reason now he's an angry Wolverine.
They don't even do that?
Jesus. They don't. Well, because he loses all his memories, and wipes them clean, and that's how the movie ends. And it's the most anticlimactic way they do it. He just they have this big fight, and I'm thinking, okay, somewhere in this fight he's going to lose his memories, right? No, at the very end, everything's done, and Stryker just walks up with a gun and shoots him with an adamantium bullet in the head, and it's just literally they've saved things. And he's just standing there, and then he just there's a gunshot and he falls to the ground, and that's the end of the movie.
That's sad.
And, okay, there's a couple more minutes, but, the couple more minutes are him waking up and not remembering anything. So,
Who am I? Is he like in a hospital when he finds some weird
No, they don't even do that. They don't even do a big like angry thing with them. They don't do anything awesome with him having bone claws in the beginning. The whole sequence where he gets like the adamantium in his skeleton is completely dull. He never once lights a cigar. Like he'll take out his cigar 1 or 2 times, but Fox wouldn't let them have him smoke, so he never actually smokes a cigar. And then this is before we get into the plot is horrendously written, and it's full of holes, and all of the characters are obnoxious or ill-developed. Like this is one where it's kind of like The Last Stand, where they just took a bunch of X-Men characters randomly and threw them in there and didn't develop them at all. Like with First Class, yes, there were random X-Men there, but they did try to develop them as characters, and in the end, it's like satisfying when they like discover their powers. This doesn't do anything with that. It's like they have a bunch of random X-Men for 5 seconds. And then, of course, there's the worst thing, which is what they do to Deadpool. Ryan Reynolds, who I don't usually like, turned out to be a perfect Deadpool. He's in the movie for 5 minutes early on. He's got the snarkiness down. He's kind of charming, but also rogue. He's got cool powers. It's like, this could be fun. It's in the middle of a terrible movie, but I'm like, hey, if they did a Deadpool movie, this could be interesting.
Yeah.
He disappears. He shows up at the very end, and what they've done, you've probably heard of this, is they've sewn his mouth shut, and he doesn't get to... And he's basically CGI now.
That's just amazing to me that they did that, because that's like the biggest middle finger you could... because literally... Yeah. Deadpool's nickname is the Merc with a mouth.
Yes.
That's his nickname.
Yes.
It'd be like, I don't know, doing Spider-Man, and then he at some point in the movie, his web shooters get destroyed, and then he never gets them for the rest of the movie. And so the web slinger doesn't have any webs anymore. It's like, you just took like one of the defining character traits and just blatantly, obviously, just completely destroyed it with no regard whatsoever.
And then now he's a villain, and they've been it's like Stryker did this to him and is like doing tests and like has stolen his powers or something. But now Deadpool is like extra powerful. I don't really remember how it all works out. And then Wolverine and Sabretooth have to team up to fight him. And then Sabretooth dies, which is funny because he's in the first X-Men movie.
Man, they have just fucked up the continuity for those X-Men movies so much.
I'm fine with just saying First Class is its own continuity, but this one does. It explicitly says this is part of the universe. Mm-hmm. It's different than say First Class, which doesn't make a big attempt to say this is the same universe. Mm-hmm. This one very clearly says that, and even then, what necessity was there to tell this Wolverine story? This is what X-Men 2 was about.
Yeah,
the whole fucking movie. We saw the story. We don't need it anymore, Mm-hmm. And it's just, it gives you no insight into Wolverine's character. The action scenes are so anemic. They're so lame. Nothing happens. And I remember this part. There's this, it's some mutant, and he goes to see him, and he's this, like, giant fat guy. And there's
Blob.
Blob, but it's not, it's, like, just kind of disgusting and disconcerting. Like, there's no reason for him to be in the movie. It's like Wolverine needs information, and now he has to do a boxing match with Blob. And I'm not making this up.
See, I heard about that. I think I saw a video or a trailer for the video game, and that happened in the video game.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just a level made up for the video game, because that seems like a video game level.
Yeah. It is.
Wow, that was in the movie.
That's terrible. The only mildly redeemable thing in the movie is they have Gambit in it, and he's done kind of cool, kind of like Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool in the beginning. Mm-hmm. But again, he's in it for 5 minutes. Wolverine has to fight him for some reason, and then they're friends. It is like a video game. It's like, Blob tells him to go find Gambit, and he finds Gambit, and he has to fight Gambit, and then Gambit gives him information. And
your princess is in another castle.
And then at the end, yeah. And then he gets, to the island where he finds Sabretooth, and he rescues, Cyclops, young Cyclops. And then he's in it for 1 minute and does something with his eyes. And then they actually had the nerve to...
Did he shoot lasers out of his eyes?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't see that coming.
And then they had the nerve to bring Patrick Stewart into the movie for 5 seconds.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, but they did the thing, like, you remember in The Last Stand where early on they have young Patrick Stewart and young Ian McKellen? Mm-hmm. Like, they did CGI to make them look young, and it looked really convincing.
Yeah.
Well, they tried to do it here, but basically they plastered Patrick Stewart's head on another body. Because I think they thought Patrick Stewart was actually handicapped and couldn't stand up. So he has, head is plastered on another body, and it's de-aged, and it's it is the creepiest fucking effect. It looks wrong on every level. And he just comes to get Cyclops and put him in a helicopter.
Wow.
And, yeah. Fuck this movie.
All right, then.
Fuck this movie. Just fuck this movie. All right.
Well,
You got 3 left. I've got 4. Should I do one more so we can do...
Yeah, you can go ahead.
All right.
One more.
I'm trying to pick which one of these is the least bad. I'm going to go with Twilight.
Oh.
All right. I'm going to talk about the original Twilight movie. Sean can't work up the same amount of hatred for it, I know.
I saw the movie and I thought it was really funny.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't hate the movie because I just made fun of it the entire time. So I can't bring myself to.
And I think I would be able to do that again if I watched it again. But I did this article for my site, the Twilight Challenge, where I read the book and then watched some of the movies to make fun of them. And I'll tell you, the Twilight binge I had to go on to do that may have impacted how much I hated this movie, because I went into it expecting, at a base, a competent film. It was a movie that was made, not spectacularly, but competently. Twilight is a failure as a movie on every level of filmmaking. It is poorly shot. It's got the worst acting I think I've ever seen in a movie.
Was there Kristen Stewart, the female lead? Oh my god! Her acting is so hilarious.
Yeah,
because
she has one.
Well, it's like she's a really good actor in a different movie where she's playing a serial killer.
Yes,
it really is. If she was playing a serial killer, she would be brilliant.
Yes,
but it's I don't. There's no way she's doing that intentionally. Yeah. Maybe she really, really hates the books, and so she just wants to destroy the movies.
Well, we know.
I have so many crazy theories about how that performance came to be, but it's so awful.
We know Robert Pattinson has said he hates this shit, and he's excited to be done with it, and he just does it for the money. And you see that that's his problem. He's just bored. He's just checked out. And I will say, in their defense, both of them have been in other movies where they've been quite good. Kristen Stewart in particular is, I think, a talented actress when she is away from Twilight. I don't blame her for being bad in Twilight. It's Twilight. You can't be good in a Twilight movie. That is impossible.
She's got to be doing something intentional then.
Though, yeah.
Now that performance is not bad. That's brilliant. Okay. That is one of the best performances I've seen in my life.
But, here's the defining scene of Twilight for me. Is they're in, the car after she finds out he's a vampire, and they've decided they're in love for some reason. No, they haven't done that yet. They're supposed to be looking like they're in love, like they're attracted, and she just, you know what I'm talking about. She looks like she's going to throw up on him, and he's just,
That's
scared.
That's the only way that she can love Jonathan.
I know.
Is if she throws up on him.
And she never, I don't know if you've seen the sequel, she never changes that performance. She always looks like she wants to vomit. And it's the most awkward acting. It's so bad. The movie's also terribly written. I had read the book, and I hate to say this, the book Twilight is much better than the movie Twilight. It's still a terrible book. But what they did in the movie, this is the thing a lot of movie adaptations have had trouble with, is they want to include every single scene.
Yeah.
So what they have to do is they have to just rush through every scene as fast as they can. So this movie is terribly paced. They don't give any character development. And not that the book does good character development, but there is at least a little bit of an indication why. They do explain, the initial attraction, Mm-hmm. They get into that a little bit because she narrates the book. Here, it's just... there is no moment where, the attraction makes any fucking sense. And it's stuff like that. And I will also say, this is something I had forgotten until I went back and looked at my review for this this podcast. I was doing some research. This has one of the worst film scores I've ever heard also, where it never fits with a single... It's like Carter Burwell, who is a phenomenal composer. I think what he was doing, it's kind of like Kristen Stewart, intentionally sabotaging the movie by composing, each scene, the score is so counter to what that scene is supposed to be, it just creates this dissonance that is, painful to watch and listen to. It's painful. But yeah.
I have to say, my favorite scene in that entire movie was that it's Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart. They're in the forest, and I think he's telling her that he's a vampire now. He does this thing where he picks her up and then he runs up the mountain, and it's a 1 second shot.
Yeah.
But the effect of him running up the mountain it's like his back is perfectly straight, and it's like they put Roadrunner legs.
Yes.
And just copy and pasted them onto his torso, and it is one of the funniest effects I've seen in my life.
Oh, the effects in the movie are terrible. It's so low budget. It's not low budget. It was $40 million, and they couldn't make it look like it cost $1 million. It looks terrible in every scene. It's got this terrible gray scale color scheme that is really dark and blue and gray. It looks terrible. Oh man, the writing is. I mean, it's hard to out bad write Stephanie Meyer, but they did it. They found a way to write even worse than Stephenie Meyer. And, yeah, I mean, we've talked about Twilight before. We're just beating a dead horse at this point. I just want to explain how poorly made on every fucking level this movie is. And the scene that defines it all for me is the vampire baseball scene.
I forgot about that.
It is, and like they pick a terrible pop song to go over it, and it's like they're like, "This is so cool," and like Kristen Stewart is off in the corner looking like she needs to vomit, but she's supposed to be impressed by it.
She's so happy.
Yeah,
so she's so happy she's gonna vomit.
Yeah. I mean, you can't really describe what Kristen Stewart is doing in these movies. You have to experience it.
Great. Oh my god!
I do want to see the movie where she plays a serial killer. She would win an Oscar for that, I think.
Brilliant performance from Kristen Stewart. One of the funniest movies of the year.
She could play a female version of the Calendar Killer from. No, she could be Victor Zsasz.
She could be like a female Zsasz.
Yeah. All right. Anyway. Okay.
Can I say my one really weird piece of trivia that I just happen to know about the first Twilight movie?
Absolutely.
Is that the director is Catherine Hardwicke, who happens to be the daughter of Edward Hardwicke, who played Watson in my favorite interpretation of Sherlock Holmes, the Granada television series.
That's sad to me.
It's a really weird piece of trivia, but
yeah, I didn't know that.
Yep.
I mean, I knew her name and I knew his name, but yeah. Catherine Hardwicke also directed the Nativity Story.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. She's actually directed several good to okay movies, but again, no one can make a good Twilight movie, but the sequels are at least competently filmed.
And that's what makes me not want to watch them. Because I don't want to watch a competently filmed.
No, they are less entertaining. They are they hurt you less, but that you kind of want that pain when you're watching it,
So now you're sounding like Kristen Stewart.
I want the pain, yeah. God, I could do the thing where just talk about the story of the next movie, where she just wants to kill herself to be. Never mind. Fuck Twilight. You go. I want to hear your rant on this.
Okay. Let's do Godzilla.
Yeah.
So
Roland Emmerich's Godzilla from 1997.
Yeah, not Gojira, the original Godzilla movie, which is a fantastic film.
Fantastic. Yeah.
But I guess we're not coming full circle because we're not done yet. But we're going back to Daikaiju movies, and just let's take what was it? Was it 1999 when that movie came out?
97 or 99.
I think it was 99.
I'm gonna get on Wikipedia.
Anyways, it was sometime around there. I mean, I was just a kid, and the Godzilla movies were some of my favorite movies. I have probably a dozen of them on VHS tape, and I watched them all the time back when VHS was a thing. And this movie was coming out.
We were both wrong. It's 1998.
Well, you split the difference.
Yeah,
we were both right in different ways.
Yes.
But anyways, so I was so excited for this movie. This is one of the first movies I can remember really being excited for because I just loved Godzilla so much. It was oh, this is going to be so cool. We're going to get a huge, big screen Godzilla movie, and it's going to be so epic and so awesome. And I remember the all the advertisement for it.
Size does matter.
Yeah, it's all of it was great. The advertisement for it everywhere. It looked like it was going to be so fucking cool. And oh my god, what a disappointment. This is one of even when I was a kid, I didn't like this movie.
Me too. I went and rented it from Blockbuster when it came out on VHS, and I was like my parents wouldn't take me to see it in the theater. And I'm excited. This looks awesome. And then it was what is this? What am I watching?
Why is there no guy in a big rubber monster suit? This is bullshit.
Well, hell, fuck it. Why is there no Godzilla for 90 fucking minutes,
I mean, yeah, just, the movie is such a disappointment on so many levels because it just, it's not fun.
No.
It's one of those instances where it needed to be fun. I mean, if they were going to try to, because I mean, I guess they were kind of trying to do an American version of the original Godzilla movie, Gojira. That was a bad idea. No. You can't translate. That film is so perfect for the time
and
in which it was made.
Gojira was not only the time, but it's distinctly Japanese.
Yeah,
it's dealing with the thing that the Japanese people were was on all of their minds, and it was very cathartic.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a piece of film history for that reason. This is
a piece of shit.
Let me. Can I say something about it?
Sure.
I hate the films of Roland Emmerich and the other guy who directs terrible disaster movies like 2012 and stuff. So Wolfgang Peterson. He didn't do 2012. He did Day After Tomorrow, I think. Anyway,
I thought both of those were Roland Emmerich.
Yeah, you're probably right. I forget. Wolfgang Peterson did some terrible.
I remember that.
But anyway, I hate these movies so much because they are all the same fucking thing. There's some threat that we only see for maybe 5 minutes total in the finished movie, and they have to bring in the military, and Michael Bay does this too with Transformers.
Yeah.
You have to bring in the military, and you have to have a story with the president, and you have to have the mayor of the city, and you have to have the newspaper people, and you have to have the scientists, and all these people, so the whole world can relate to this, and it's this big deal because all these people are talking about it. And this goes back to the Independence Day is probably the one that established all this. It's so annoying, all of that. Like, just tell a good story and do something with this monster, this threat you have. They never do that. They always make it too big. And that's what this Godzilla movie was. It's a bunch of people sitting around talking about Godzilla, and you never fucking see Godzilla.
Yeah, Godzilla never...
And then when you do, he doesn't look like Godzilla.
Yeah, that's such a terrible redesign. I mean, I get what they were trying to do. It's like, oh, let's try to make him look like an actual lizard monster. But it's like, no, the classic Godzilla is classic for a reason.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, it's hokey that it's a guy in a rubber monster suit. Yeah. It looks better today than your fucking CGI does. Roland Emmerich. CGI does not age as well as a rubber monster suit does.
That's absolutely true.
Doesn't that make you feel sad for all the millions of dollars you threw into that fucking model?
Yep. I mean, how much did they spend on this movie? $130 million. And back then, that meant a lot more.
Yeah, that's a lot of money for 97. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah, this just like destroyed my dreams of having a good.
And of course, there's the whole thing where they're making fun of Siskel and Ebert in the movie because Siskel and Ebert didn't like Independence Day. And it's like, how petty can you be? When you make shitty movies, you should expect people to dislike them. I'm sorry.
And throw that into your own fucking your own movie. Don't throw it into a Godzilla movie, like an adaptation of something that already exists, and throwing in your petty little shit, and then throwing in your disaster movie formula and all that stuff. There's just no reason for it. It's just terrible. It
is terrible. And then there's the whole last act where Godzilla dies, and you find out she was a mother Godzilla, and she has all her babies now. And then they have to find the babies, but then the babies, there's one egg left at the end.
They did the sequel bait, and it's like, that's not gonna help you out at all.
And you know what came out right after that? Or maybe it would have been 2 years later, I guess, is Godzilla 2000.
The way better movie.
Yeah, and then I saw that in theaters, and that was probably the first real Godzilla movie I'd seen. I was like, this is awesome. And
that's a really fun movie.
Yeah, and I thought, this is so much better. And
I mean, God, the rubber monster suit in that looks like 10 times better than the CGI in the Emmerich movie.
Yeah. So I wanted to read you Roger Ebert's review, a bit of his review of Godzilla, because obviously, he was parodied in the movie. I think his reaction was funny. He says, "Oh, and then there are New York's Mayor Ebert and his advisor Gene. The mayor, of course, makes every possible wrong decision. He is against evacuating Manhattan, etc., and the advisor eventually gives thumbs down to his re-election campaign. These characters are a reaction by Emmerich and Devlin to negative Siskel and Ebert reviews of their earlier movies. But they let us off lightly. I fully expected to be squished like a bug by Godzilla. Now that I've inspired a Godzilla and a character in a Godzilla movie, all I really still desire is for several Ingmar Bergman characters to sit in a circle and read my reviews to one another in hushed tones." It's just great.
That's great.
Yeah, but fuck Godzilla.
Fuck the Roland Emmerich Godzilla movie. It just makes me. I really love in the Godzilla Final Wars movie, which I think is still the last Godzilla movie to have come out.
Yeah.
They have a scene where they have a little CGI monster Godzilla thing. I think it's just called Zilla, and then Godzilla just beats the shit out of him. And it's one of the most cathartic scenes I've ever seen in my life.
That's awesome. Godzilla 2000 had an alien invasion, right?
Yeah, it had this big alien orca monster thing, and it started out as a spaceship, and then eventually it turned into a giant monster.
A movie where the plot made no sense to me, but I still thought it was fun.
The plot was there was an alien monster that I think it took some of Godzilla's DNA, and that's how it turned into that monster instead of a spaceship. It is a whole thing.
Yeah, and I mean, when I saw that in theaters, it was dubbed, and so there was the lip movement not matching.
There's nothing better than a dubbed Godzilla movie.
All right. Oh god, all these movies are equally shitty. All right, the next one I'm going to talk about on this list is a movie called Baghdad Cafe. You've probably never heard of it, and I feel kind of bad that I'm telling the world about it, because I hope you don't go seek this out because of me, please. It's terrible. But Baghdad Cafe, I had to watch for a class in college, and to that class's credit, that's one of the best classes I've ever taken. It was a gender, sexuality, and pop culture class, and it was a really fun discussion class, or really interesting and engaging. But my teacher, bless her heart, had kind of an interesting taste in movies. And this one, she says, is one of her favorites. That's fine. You are perfectly entitled to your opinions. Baghdad Cafe could very well be the worst movie I've ever had to sit through. Baghdad Cafe, I would love to be able to tell you what it was about. I really would. But I can't, because it really wasn't about anything. It basically starts with these two German people, a husband and wife, and they're in the desert. And we never find out where this is. I think it's supposed to be in Las Vegas.
It's the
Mojave Desert. But it's also called Baghdad. And, Baghdad is also a desert.
Yeah, so but Baghdad's spelled wrong.
So. That's true. But I thought maybe initially, they're in the desert and these people are German. Germany is closer to Baghdad than it is to America. I don't know. Anyway, I guess they were all talking English, so I should have figured that out. But anyway, so they're in the desert, and the first 10 minutes are shot entirely with Dutch angles, and not just slightly.
It's a German film.
Yeah,
it's Deutsch angles.
Yeah, just slightly slanted angles. It's totally I think there's actually a shot where they completely turn the camera horizontal.
Well, no, that's when the cameraman died, and that's when the found footage portion of the movie ended.
Right. No, anyway, so it's really annoying. They've got music that's basically, for 10 minutes while they're fighting.
Well, that wouldn't get annoying at all.
Yeah, one person gets in the car and drives away, then the other person catches up, and that person gets out of the car to find them, and then they jump in the car and drive. They switch over and over again, and then eventually, the husband, leaves the woman behind, and then she has to go to this cafe. And there's this really mean woman who runs the cafe, and she's just mean to everyone. And there's all these really weird characters, and they're not weird endearing. They're just weird. I think, God, what's the actor? There's a really good actor in it. I forget his name. Oh, Jack Palance. Yeah, Jack Palance is in this, and he's annoying. He's this weird hippie painter dude, and basically the German woman stays at the motel by the cafe. And the cafe is totally run down, and she eventually decides she wants to be a magician and is showing magic tricks at the cafe, and the cafe becomes successful. And then at one point, after the mean woman who runs the cafe finally chews out everyone enough, she realizes she's mean and stops being mean, and that's supposedly a character arc.
Yeah.
This is one of those movies that's so bad. I think you talked about a few of these where it's hard to explain what's bad about it.
Yeah.
It's completely dull for one, but it's also dull in a very surreal way where there is no. Not only is it I don't mind weird. Weird can be really cool, but weird without any internal logic at all. That's bad, People like to say Tim Burton's movies are weird. Well, Tim Burton's movies also have an internal logic that is very structured.
Yeah.
And that's what makes him a good director. This is there is no logic to it. It's really wacky. I think they're trying to do a subtext about creating family, unconventional family systems here, because they're just all friends who hang out in this cafe, but they don't ever really get into that. They just kind of show people hanging out. The characters are so one-dimensional. The mean lady who runs the cafe, she's just mean, and there's no arc for her. She just one day is really mean to the German woman, and she's saying something I think she's yelling at her for playing with her kids, and she's like, "Why don't you have kids of your own?" And then the German lady out of nowhere says, "I can't have kids." And then suddenly it just takes this dark turn. She's and then it becomes and then the mean woman is "Oh," and then they're friends, and that's the arc of the movie. And again, it is so bad I can't describe it without you have to sit down and watch it to understand just how bad it is. It's poorly filmed. The color scheme is this really garish, blues and greens and browns, and it just looks terrible. I don't know what to say about it. It's just bad. It has no internal logic. It has no story to speak of. Bad character arcs. Bad fucking everything. But at the same time, I put it sort of roughly at this number 3 spot because I don't know, the other two movies I want to talk about, I have so many more concrete complaints about, So that's that. I want to hear about your number 2. In fact, I think I've probably heard about your number 2.
I think everyone's heard about my number 2. Well, actually, it's interesting. The number 2 for me is a big number 2. It's Transformers 2: Revenge of the Fallen. We've done our Transformers podcast.
Yeah, if you're a new listener to the monthly stuff, on the monthly 10 last summer when Transformers Dark of the Moon came out, Sean and I did the top 10 things we hate about Michael Bay's Transformers movies, and then Sean got to do his really long rant on Revenge of the Fallen, and it was awesome.
And we had a debate, and I
Oh, that's true.
I squashed you.
Can I really quickly say what I think of the movie so you can talk about it? Revenge of the Fallen, for me, yes, it's a terrible movie. I don't mind it as much as other people. For me, it's on par with the first one. It's just bad. I don't like them. I do like the third one, so I've kind of been able to forgive it a little bit, just because they eventually did something good with it. But no, two's bad.
It doesn't deserve to be forgiven.
Sorry, it doesn't. It doesn't inspire the same passion in me as it does in you. So, but your rants on this movie are very entertaining. So let's hear it.
So this is easily the worst movie I've ever seen in the movie theater, which is why it gets my number 2 spot. It's not the worst movie I've ever seen, but it's the worst one I've seen in a theater. And oh my god, it's just, it's kind of like the Twilight thing where it's like everyone hates, everyone that has an opinion and a brain hates the fucking movie, or at least doesn't think it's good. Most people hate it because they find it incredibly offensive, and it's a testament. It's a racist movie, it's a poorly made movie, it's a poorly shot movie. Yeah. It hurts your fucking eyes at some point because the CGI is so bad. The music, it's just everything. It's just bad. It's a terrible, terrible, terrible movie, and it takes a pretty well beloved '80s cartoon franchise, and it takes a big number 2 all over it. It's just, I think one of the scenes that still stands out most in my mind that just illustrates how shitty this movie is there's the scene where the secret agent guy, he's on a pyramid, and then Devastator, he's basically a bunch of different robots that combine together to be a big robot, and he's kind of standing over him, and the guy's calling in an airstrike, and he's like, I'm directly beneath the enemy scrotum, and then you look up, and you see Devastator has 2 big wrecking balls as testicles. That's the kind of movie this is. It's kind of like Cat in the Hat, where it's like, why? Where does that come from? Yeah. From Transformers? Why does that need to be there? Transformers didn't have any fucking scrotum jokes in it. Yeah. It doesn't need to have any scrotum jokes. Nothing needs to have any fucking scrotum jokes, especially when it doesn't make any sense, because it's a fucking robot. Those are testicles. Scrotum is the skin surrounding the testicles. You fucking hack. Read a fucking anatomy textbook for once in your life. My god, the movie's just terrible. It's a shit movie. It's a boring as hell movie because they spend half of it in the desert doing absolutely nothing. I want to punch Shia LaBeouf in the face, and I want to kick... I want to kick Michael Bay in his robot scrotum. Yes. So there we go.
Hey, Shia LaBeouf is not nearly as bad as his roommate in the movie. Do you remember the Spanish roommate?
The roommate's it's just another example of comic relief that needs to die.
Yeah. So can I ask you, what weren't you moved by the riveting romance subplot where Shia LaBeouf and Megan Fox can't decide which one of them should say "I love you" first, and that's the entire basis for their character arc?
No, I want to punch you in the face right now and kick you in your robot scrotum.
I'm not. It's sarcasm.
Yeah, well, take your fucking sarcasm and shove it up your ass. Nobody wants your sarcasm right now.
You were hurt by this movie, weren't you?
It's a piece of shit movie. It's a terrible movie. I can't. It's just. And then I think one of the worst parts about this movie actually shares a similar theme with my top movie is that it got a lot of money shoved behind it that did not just got used for
Michael Bay
evil purposes.
You know how much Michael Bay made from this movie?
I don't care.
There are estimates that it was up to $60 million.
Well, I hope he donates that money for cancer research or something like that. I know he's not. He's going to buy an explosion. There's just a perpetual explosion in his house.
He doesn't have sprinklers. He has explosion machines in his front lawn.
It's just...
All right.
Yeah, fuck that movie.
I'm going to talk about one that I think my feelings on it are very similar for you in Revenge of the Fallen. Yep. And this is Sucker Punch.
Right.
The Sucker Punch and then my number 1 are so close. I don't know which one to talk about. But, okay, that Sucker Punch is Zack Snyder's magnum opus. You know, he worked his career up to make this movie, and along the way, I enjoyed his films. I enjoy 300 as it's a stylistic exercise, but a fun one.
Yeah.
Watchmen was a very effective adaptation of a great book, and just beautifully directed. And I liked the casting and all that. Very good. You know, that was. It seemed like Zack Snyder was headed for full directorial maturation. You know, and Sucker Punch was the first movie he'd ever written. So he's writing and directing it. This is something he'd wanted to make his whole career. It's like, this is going to be cool. It looked kind of like Inception, where there are multiple layers of reality. It's all female protagonists. That's kind of new for an action movie. That could be interesting. Mm-hmm. And then I think it took about 5 minutes for me to realize, oh God, what have I done buying a ticket for this? And
yeah, that's like my reaction to Transformers too. It's like I paid money for this. My money went to this.
Yes.
That makes me a bad person. I'm a bad person because I've sat here and paid money for this movie.
That's what I felt about Sucker Punch. Oh boy, I don't even know where to start. I think the first thing to say about it would be that. Oh wait, what happened here? Oh, sorry. Anyway, I had something going on my computer just now. So Sucker Punch is you always talk about the first 5 minutes.
Did it sucker punch you and your robot screwed
It sucker punched everyone. It's fucking anyway. People have described Sucker Punch as a video game. Like, it's got a video game-esque plot. Like, they have to go find this thing, they have to go find this thing. That's a fucking insult to video games. It's been a long time since video games had stories that rudimentary, for one. Like, where it's just, you have to go to this level and get this, and go to this level and get this.
I think Mario would have to talk with you right now.
Yes. Well, you know what? Mario has a better story than this. Mario has...
I'm sure. I'm not going to argue that.
Super Mario Brothers has better defined characters. It has better defined stakes. It makes sense. It's coherent. It's clear. And you know what? It's fucking fun. Sucker Punch is not fun for 1 fucking second. No matter how scantily clad the hot women are, it doesn't matter. There's nothing pleasant about the entire fucking experience.
It's like with Transformers 2. Everyone's like, well, at least Megan Fox was hot in it. Go fuck yourself if Megan Fox was hot in it. I don't fucking care.
Well, here's the thing. Sucker Punch makes you feel bad about that. And I will get to the sexism in a second. Let's go back to my first point about the story.
Okay.
Sucker Punch, I like to describe it as having no story. Yes, technically there is a plot in there somewhere. For the life of me, I couldn't figure out what the fuck it was. You know, this woman, or this girl, Baby Doll, played by Emily Browning, who is a very good actress in other things, not here, gets sent to a mental institution after her father, kills her little sister, and then she tries to kill the father. So she gets put in a mental institution, and the father wants her lobotomized. That is the only plot that is coherent, and that's, the first 5 minutes.
That sounds like an anime plot, not a video game
I know.
plot.
So anyway, Baby Doll gets into this mental institution.
Is it Baby Doll from the Batman animated series?
Sadly, no.
Oh, that would have been an awesome movie.
That would have been. No, this is just this is one of the things that makes no sense. Is like the names, they start calling themselves this, but we don't know why. These obviously aren't their real names. Oh. But anyway, she gets there, and we see what I think is the prime layer of reality for all of 5 seconds, and then she goes into a second layer of reality. Oh. Like, she creates this for herself. And that's where the mental institution is a brothel. Now, here's the first problem with the movie. Her escape from the horrendous reality of her life is to imagine herself being a prostitute. This is what Zack Snyder thinks is women empowerment.
Well, maybe, if only she was played by Kristen Stewart, she could have pulled that off.
She could have. But no. So they're in a brothel, and then they decide they need to go another layer deeper, and I don't know what the next layer is. But basically, the brothel layer is treated as reality for most of the movie, even though it isn't reality. And it's fucking confusing. But anyway,
and then her wife is there, and there's like a train or something. It's just
Inception makes sense. That's clear and coherent. No, this is so. Anyway, they go into layer 6 or whatever, and they decide
level 6.
Yeah, there's a way they can escape if they fight giant robots.
Where the fuck did that come from?
It's what happens in the movie. She gets sent into. Okay, so here's what happened. I remember this. Carla Gugino is like someone at the brothel, and she has them. She's teaching them how to dance, like striptease and stuff. And whenever she starts to do a strip dance, she goes into a hallucinogenic state. This is true. This is what happens in the movie. I just can't believe these words are coming out of my mouth. You know, this is what's going to be like.
Are you sure you wouldn't just I don't know, have a bad piece of pizza or something before you saw the movie?
No.
Just completely hallucinated it.
No.
Maybe you were on alternate levels of reality.
No. Anyway, so while they're doing a strip dance, she falls into this weird hallucinogenic state where she meets this. She is suddenly in this sexy samurai skirt outfit thing. I don't fucking know. And she's got a samurai sword, and she goes and talks to this old man who tells her that there's a way to escape from being lobotomized if she finds 4 magical objects. But first she has to fight 2 giant robots. So this is in an old samurai village, and then he gives her a sword and 2 giant robots come in, and she has to fight the giant robots, and then she gets back to the brothel layer of reality. And now she has to enlist her friends to go find these 4 magical objects, and it'll be stuff like a key and a map or something. So, like, to get the map, it's like the key would be like the guard of the mental institution has the key, but the guard, of course, in the brothel layer of reality is something else, like a client or something.
Sounds like you watched a super fucked up version of Dora the Explorer.
Yeah, pretty much. And anyway, so when they imagine they're going to get the key, they decide to imagine it as if they're doing this elaborate action sequence, and suddenly they're in the trenches of World War I, but the villains are
giant robots,
giant Nazi robots.
Oh,
so it's like World War II in World War I, but in this like heightened reality that's all CGI, and there's a dragon that comes in, and they have to fight all this stuff. And they and then they get the key somehow. And I don't like. This is the thing. The whole movie, these set pieces. There's 4 set pieces for each one of the objects, and those are the big action sequences. And people will point to that as being like, at least those are visually inventive and stuff. Well, to a degree, I suppose that's true, but there's no internal logic for why they're there. They just are.
Yeah.
They just are, and it's so stupid. And they apparently have to do this to get the key. They couldn't just go up and like take the key. They have to do this. They have to fight a dragon in the.
Well, yeah, they have to fight the dragon robot scrotum monster.
Yes, and then, but through all of this, it gets even worse in the end. There's this one character played by Oscar Isaac, who Oscar Isaac then went on to do some really good movies like Drive. But in this movie, it's maybe the worst screen performance I've ever seen, where he's like the warden of the hospital or something, and he just it's chewing scenery doesn't even do it justice. It's him
he was devouring scenery.
Yes, he was. Like killing scenery puppies and devouring them, and it's just he'll be like going like he'll be really quiet and like. Well, if you escape, then you'll get like, and you can't understand him, and he'll be yelling, and anyway, so there's all this stuff with him, and in the end, like it turns out, in the main layer of reality, he's like been selling them for sex or something, like when they're drugged, but that never comes up until like the last 5 minutes of the movie.
And so like she was hallucinating sex as being giant robot dragons.
I don't know.
That's really deep.
And then
that symbolism that just like hits you.
And then John Hamm from Mad Men appears for all of 5 seconds, and at that point, what I started doing was in the theater chair, I was just rocking back and forth, being like, "Don't you ruin John Hamm for me! This is one of the great TV actors, and why is he here in this terrible movie?" And he's like the lobotomy guy, I guess, and that's all he does. And then basically what happens is all the main characters die at one point or another, and then the Emily Browning character, the main character, she dies, but then before she dies, she says to the other surviving character, she says, "This was never my story, it was your story." And then like she dies, and it's like, now this person's the main character and starts narrating, and it's like they abandoned the arc of the one character who was central to the story, and now it's like her story, and then she gets on a bus, she like escapes the mental institution and gets on a bus that's driven by the old man from the hallucinogenic dream, and see, all I have to do to show how this movie is bad is describe it.
I even question whether or not, like, I actually kind of want to watch the movie just to verify whether or not it is that, because I can see a good movie there if you cut out all the shit about like robots and fighting.
No, I think
like
that...
if you had like something where you actually, I don't know, used like you had symbolism, like actual symbolism.
There is no symbolism, no. And then of course there is, and I don't want to get too deep into this. It is a ridiculously sexist movie. I'm sorry, it's misogynistic to a disturbing degree. That the whole thing is, this is female empowerment, like they're fighting for their freedom. Why are they doing it in skimpy outfits? They're like, all of them are basically wearing a bra and panties for the whole film, but this is like their illusions. Why are they imagining themselves as this? There is no reason except that they, Zack Snyder wanted to have a bunch of hot chicks in bikinis in his movie.
Fighting robot dragons.
Yes, and it's just Zack Snyder whacking off for the camera for 2 hours, and it's fucking disgusting, the whole movie, and it's hard. It was the first movie where I was harsh enough to actually just say F, and I wanted to give it an F minus, but I was ultimately persuaded that that's not a real letter grade. But
how I guess it's true. It's not a real. I mean, it's your fucking system.
It is. I know. That's true. I should give it an F minus.
You should have given it like a 0. You should have just said fuck all those. 0.
Yeah. But man, it hurt me to watch. And, at the very least, I will give Zack Snyder this. He is a competent visual architect. The movie, the cinematography's good. The special effects are fine, whatever. None of it makes any sense, though. And, people want to forgive it because of that, like, it's a good visual experience. I don't care about that. You
Yeah.
have to have a story. You have to have characters. You have to have something worth making those action sequences worthwhile, and there is none of that. Apparently, there's the Blu-ray has like an extended cut that's like 20 minutes longer that apparently makes the plot make sense more and stuff. I'm not going to sit through it. I just won't give it that chance.
I mean, it sounds
But
like...
there's no way to salvage it.
Yeah,
I don't think.
it definitely sounds like... Like, there's no... You can't just add footage and make that better. It's like the very conceit of them going into that other world and fighting robots just kind of destroys the whole
And it's
point. Because you're dealing with... I haven't seen the movie, but it feels like it's just like they're dealing with an issue in a very serious issue in a very bad way. They're trying to like kind of just like be flippant and like comic booky about it.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you can't do that with sexual abuse. That's not cool.
And that's absolutely correct. That's the misogyny I was talking about. And then the music is terrible. It's all these really bad pop songs that like score the movie. And I mean, Zack Snyder used to be good at that too. Like Watchmen, I love the song selections in that they did. I mean, they're all period specific, and some of them are sourced from the book. But he has I still like the use of Hallelujah in the sex scene.
That's one of the ones I was going to bring up. Okay. I don't think that that's one of the ones where Zack Snyder shines through a bit too much.
Okay, and I agree. I mean, it's not perfect, but
it's funny, but it shouldn't be funny.
I understand. You are correct about that. But pretending for a moment that's that doesn't undermine the theme of the scene. On a pure surface level, he at least picked a song that kind of worked. There was something there.
Yeah.
You get to Sucker Punch. It's like, did he just turn his iPod onto a random song here? It's terrible. And,
we ran out of budget to hire a composer. Quick, use the shuffle.
Before this movie came out, I was thinking, Zack Snyder doing Superman, that could be interesting. I am so worried for that movie. Yeah. To my mind, after he did Sucker Punch, there's no way he can make a good Superman movie. I'm sorry, he's just the style. It might end up being a good movie, but as far as I can imagine it, the style just does not make sense for Superman at all. No, and maybe he could tone off or tone down his style for the movie, or turn it off, or do something different. I mean, David S. Goyer wrote the script. He did Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. I'm sure it's a good script. I think they've cast it quite well, but. Just that's how bad Sucker Punch is. It's made me lose faith in an unrelated project.
Although, now we've got a random... This is like a Blue Fingertips thing, but with the Man of Steel Superman. Yeah. Have you seen the Man of Steel Superman costume?
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of... Don't you think it's like it looks really off?
It does.
Because they didn't... I'm actually fine. Like, the New 52, Superman has a redesigned costume where he doesn't have the kind of like the red outer like trunks. Yeah. He has like the shorts. And I'm kind of fine with that because I always thought they were a bit hokey. But I don't think you need to take them out. I think it works well with them, but you can make it work well without them. But they balanced it out by having like a red belt and the blue's a little bit brighter. The Man of Steel one, like the blue is really dark. It's almost kind of looks like Mystique's skin in the X-Men movies.
It has a weird texture. That's
it's got like this weird texture, and it's this really dark blue, and he has no belt. He has no like red shorts on the outside of his costume.
I thought the costume in Superman Returns personally struck a really nice balance between realism
that was
and
perfectly
comic book.
fine.
Yeah, that was. I wish they would have just reused that.
I mean, if they had gone with the New 52 redesign, I would have been fine. If you don't want the red trunks, but it's like you need to do something. You have to add some element to his waist, or else it just looks funky. But we're completely off topic now.
Yeah. Well, hey, as long as we're talking about Man of Steel, I also think the title of that movie is fucking stupid.
Yeah, they tried to do like a Dark Knight thing without having the first movie to justify.
But even then, Superman isn't... I feel like he's not referred to in that same way. Like, Man of Steel is a description of his strength. Dark Knight is also like a thematic thing, that they work in. There's no way... you're not going to end Man of Steel with, Lois Lane doing a speech like, he is the Man of Steel. Done.
You could, and then also like you could. But now, but Superman's better for that because now you can have a movie that's like the last son of Krypton.
Yeah.
Movies like he's the Man of Tomorrow. You could do those.
Yeah.
But I agree. Like just Man of Steel is a bit funky. But can you come up with a good title that alliterates with Superman that would justify an origin story? Because you've got Batman Begins. That title writes itself.
Superman Starts.
It doesn't have like quite the right ring to it, does it?
Superman Segways. Speaking of Superman, just kidding. No, Sean wanted me to do my rant on my last movie on this list before I get to his last rant, because his rant is going to be big and epic and probably very entertaining. Like I said, I couldn't quite decide between Sucker Punch and this next one, but I ultimately put this here because I've hated this movie for so long, and I feel like I need to do it justice by putting it at the top. This is Fool's Gold. Now, you've probably forgotten this, because you probably didn't go to see it. And if you did, you're a more whole person than I am. You have a soul that is more intact than mine. I was dragged to this by my mother. And I love my mother to death, but I have never let her drag me to a romantic comedy or one of those movies again. Like, I will sit her down on Rotten Tomatoes and be like, look at this, Mom. You don't want to do this to yourself. And sometimes she gets mad at me about that, but then I just say, you took me to Fool's Gold, and she'll be like, I'm sorry, son. I'm so sorry.
And like a single tear where we roll down her cheek and she puts her hand on your shoulder.
It's like, I forgive you. So, it's... No. Okay. Fool's Gold stars jackass extraordinaire Matthew McConaughey and actress who is normally perfectly pleasant but terrible in this movie, Kate Hudson. And a bunch of other people who are really fucking annoying, and then in a really sad death of a career, Donald Sutherland, who is the captain of a ship who takes them on a journey for treasure and embarrasses himself for 2 straight hours. And it's okay, Donald, we forgive you. I hope the same never happens to Kiefer. Anyway, yes. So Fool's Gold.
I just kind of like this mental flash of Jack Bauer in like a romantic comedy.
That would be awesome. He just comes in at the end and tortures the 2 leads. Yeah. All right. And the other reason I have
Jack, you have to get to the airport before she leaves. Damn it, Chloe! I'm running out of time.
Yeah. That would be great. Anyway, Fool's Gold. The plot of this delightful film, if you didn't see the trailers that were probably like aired twice before every movie when that movie came
that's
out.
the only reason I remember this, because I remember those trailers were everywhere.
And they used the song
they used
it was by the Police. It was
Message in a Bottle.
Message in a Bottle, which I love that song.
That's
and now when I
song.
hear it, it's like I have to think about Fool's Gold. Anyway, Fool's Gold. Matthew McConaughey and Kate Hudson are 2 lovers, except now they're divorced or something, and so they have a sort of, rivalrous, relationship. Like, he's a professor, I think, and so, Matthew McConaughey is believable as a professor, and she's a woman. I don't know. She does stuff, and they flirt and shit, and then it turns out one of them has like a map to buried treasure or something, and they decide to go look for treasure, and to be honest, I don't have as much to say about this one as Sucker Punch, because Sucker Punch is so much fresher in my mind. But every fucking single simpering stupid second of this shit-tacular movie pissed me off actively. And, like, the characters are just detestable. Every one of them, except Donald Sutherland, who's just sort of in the background. They're all detestable. Like, Matthew McConaughey...
Is Matthew McConaughey?
I hate him so much. I hate him so much. He has never played a likable character. He's an asshole. That's all he can play. You can write him as the nicest guy on the planet, and he comes across as an asshole, because, god damn it, that's who Matthew McConaughey is. And I just hate him. And then Kate Hudson is just supposed to be like the, strong-willed, girlfriend who's like, quirky and like smart and stuff, and she just comes across as a total bitch. And they're perfect for each other because they're both terrible people. But all their flirting is so poorly written, and you know the kind of movie I'm talking about, where the 2 leads are really annoying, and they flirt for 2 hours and have sex on the beach or whatever else. And there's supposed to be like action sequences, like there's like these other like rival treasure hunters who like are rival professors. And then they come to take the treasure, and then like they get tied up, underground, and they have to escape from dynamite or something. And it's terrible action sequences that are very poorly directed, and there is really no chemistry between the leads, but we're supposed to believe there is. The plot makes no sense. This like hunt for the treasure and all the like MacGuffins they have to go through to get to it, and then. There's the thing I remember most strongly about this is that for some reason, like Donald Sutherland is like the ship captain who like takes them to this island, and then his daughter or niece or something is there, and she's this like supposed to be like this dumb blonde, and it's probably the most offensive thing anyone has ever said about blonde people in the history of the world, because she is just the ditziest ditz, and not in kind of a funny, charming way, in the, like, God, please take away my hearing so I don't have to hear her voice anymore kind of way. And they devote at least 20 minutes in the first act to her, and, like, on the ship, just making fun of her and stuff. And that's what I remember most strongly, because it was so painful. I got up, walked out of the theater, and I just had to do laps around the audit, like the Cineplex, until I could find the strength to go back in. And I go back in, and they're still spending time on her, and Donald Sutherland is being really creepy around her, and it's just, oh God, it's bad. Moreover, though, Fool's Gold represents the genre that I feel is the worst film genre in modern filmmaking, and that is the romantic comedy. There, at least in terms of the, like, genre conventions, there are no good romantic comedies. I'm sorry. There just aren't. You have ones that kind of break the mold and do something else, like 500 Days of Summer, that are very good, but I wouldn't call that a romantic comedy, because the ultimate focus is on other things besides just men and women being terrible to each other until the end, where they find out they are in love. And it's just...
That's, like, the best description of romantic comedy I've ever heard.
Isn't it true, though?
Yeah, it's 2.5 hours of men and women being terrible to each other until they find out they're in love.
Yeah, and I just think the romantic comedy genre is so hateful to women and so hateful to men and just to humanity itself. They're never funny. They're never well written. They're never well acted. They've been the bane of many actresses' existences. Like, God, poor Katherine Heigl, who once had dramatic, potential, is now the queen of terrible romantic comedies, and her career's basically over because of it. Jennifer Aniston had so much promise coming out of Friends, and I don't know how she survived this long making terrible romantic comedies. But, I just hate that genre with every fiber of my being. There was a movie, Crazy Stupid Love, last year, which everyone else was like, this is great, it breaks romantic comedies, conventions and stuff. No, it doesn't. Crazy Stupid Love is just as bad as Fool's Gold. I didn't put it on here because I'm so sick of the hate mail about me hating that movie. But, they're hateful movies. They're comedy that pander to the absolute lowest common denominator. And more than that, I don't like what it says about film and women in saying that if we're going to program to women, we have to do it as the most broad, pandering, stupid shit. Women enjoy good film too. And there's no reason why you can't center good films around women for women. And that's why Bridesmaids, I think that was a very good movie. I don't think it was as good as some people said, but I understand why Bridesmaids was such a big cultural phenomenon. It was the first movie, comedy in years targeted towards women that wasn't hateful or stupid or poorly written. It was a really well-written, character-driven comedy. And, it succeeded because of that. But Fool's Gold, to me, is the worst romantic comedy I think I've ever seen. And I don't think it has the same sort of hateful gender things like Crazy Stupid Love or some of those others I mentioned, but it is just so bad and so hard to watch, and I hate every moment of it. And it sums up a lot of the films I had to watch back during that Colorado Kids era. If I wanted to, I could get into all the Hilary Duff movies I had to go see, and I would probably just collapse from lingering hatred. But I know none of this is as bad as the movie Sean's about to tell us about, and I feel for you, Sean. We're all here for you.
Hate. Let me tell you how much I hate this movie. There are 367.44 trillion cells that make up my neural complex. If the word hate was engraved on each nanoangstrom of those hundreds of trillions of cells, it would not equal 1/1 billionth of the hate I feel for that fucking movie in this micro-instant. For after last season, hate! Okay. I need to explain how the fuck I watched this piece of shit. There was a time in my life not too long ago where this is when I was really, really into Mystery Science Theater, and I wanted to watch all the really shitty movies that were fucking hilarious. So, I went off and I watched Sharktopus, and I watched The Room, and I watched Troll 2, and they were fucking hilarious. And then everyone is pointing me to this movie called After Last Season. And they're like, oh, this is like Troll 2. This is so terrible that it's fucking hilarious. You know what? No. I get it. I like those. There are movies that are terrible, that there are movies that are so terrible that they're funny, and then there's movies that are so terrible that they go beyond being so terrible they're funny, that they're so terrible that they are evil. It goes beyond any sort of value judgment and creeps into the realm of ethics and morality. That is an evil movie. It's an evil product. It exists for an evil purpose. It exists to just coax the greed of man. That's the only reason this movie was fucking made. So I went, and everyone was pointing me to this movie, and I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. It looks pretty shitty even for like these movie standards. Like, it doesn't look like it's going to be that much fun. But I thought, fuck it, I'll give it a try. So I found the movie online. I didn't pay anything for it, and that's the only reason I haven't killed myself yet. I didn't pay anything for it. I pirated it. And it's the happiest decision I've ever made in my life is that I pirated this fucking piece of shit. I contributed nothing to its creation. But I pirated the movie, and I watched it, and it scarred me. That fucking movie... It starts off with...
Just to be really clear, I don't know how much you've said the title. This is called After Last Season.
After Last Season.
Okay.
Doesn't matter, the title's not...
Well, I want people to know what movie you're referring to.
But like, I mean, the title has nothing.
I know.
I don't even know how they picked that fucking title.
We'll get to that.
I think, I mean, if you look at the title, if you look at it, the letters that reoccur the most also happen to be the letters that spell out Satan. Just keep that in mind. That's completely true. That's true, right? You see that, right? It spells out, if you take the letters that occur the most, it spells out fucking Satan. That's why they picked the title. So it's After Last Season. I do have to warn you, though. Do not make my mistake and think that people saying this movie is so terrible that means it's funny. Do not do that. Do not watch this movie. Do not seek this movie out. Do not try to watch it. Do not try to do anything related to this movie. Just don't even try to don't even watch the fucking trailer, because that will suck a piece of your soul out. Just watching the fucking trailer.
I can attest to that.
It's so terrible. And so the movie, I don't even know how much I can explain the plot, because it doesn't make any fucking sense. But it starts out where you have a bunch of doctors in a pink room that's obviously some family just had a baby girl, and they redecorated the room and painted the walls pink. And it looks like a little girl's room. And they're pretending that it's a hospital room, and then they have a bunch of cardboard boxes stacked up, and they have MRI written on the side of it, and it's supposed to be an MRI machine, and there are people talking about the results from this fucking MRI machine. And so that's like the first 10 minutes of this movie, is just people in a pink room standing next to a pile of cardboards talking about fake MRI reports. And that's the first 10 minutes of the movie. Once it gets past that, those people are never seen again. What they say is never referred to again. The first 2 minutes of the movie were completely fucking pointless. They completely wasted my time, and they were the best 10 minutes of the movie, because at least the MRI machine thing was fucking funny. But so after that point, and I think it kind of, the MRI thing maybe a little bit relates to, because they get into this weird psychic type stuff. So I probably wasn't paying enough fucking attention, because I couldn't really understand what they were saying, because the sound quality is absolutely horrendous. It's so hard to tell just what the fuck people are saying, and if you do make any of it out, it doesn't matter, because it's delivered about as poorly as you could possibly deliver a line, and the line, it's like people pissed on a piece of paper, and that's how they wrote the dialogue. So that's how they wrote the fucking movie. But after it cuts away from the MRI machine, you go to this, abandoned... I don't even know how to describe the fucking set that makes up the rest of this, 80-minute movie. It's like an abandoned warehouse, and there's just, shit strewn about, and there's, this one area that's kind of blocked off and has, these half-destroyed walls, and that's supposed to be that's supposed to be a completely different area of the city, and they spend, 10 minutes in there with one character that's our female lead, and then these two other people who are their friends, and they're talking about shit that never comes up again in the movie, vaguely setting up the premise of the woman going to a college, and she's going to go take these psychic tests. So there's another 10 minutes of the movie in this just dingy little warehouse place that's supposed to be a fucking apartment. So I guess all these people must have been homeless, because they couldn't have shot in their own fucking rooms. They have to go to an abandoned warehouse, section off an area, and use that to be an apartment. And then the rest of the movie is she goes to this, was supposed to be a college. It's just the rest of the warehouse that's completely opened up. And then she sits at a table, and there's another guy, and he sits at the other end of the table, and then they talk. And they talk about shit, and you don't know what the fuck they're talking about. There's something involving some sort of serial killer. And that's supposed to be the plot of the movie. There's something serial killer related going on, and they're doing psychic tests to determine something relating to some sort of serial killer somewhere that you occasionally will get a brief glimpse of what's, I guess is supposed to be the serial killer's point of view, where he's going into this house and the camera moves at like half a mile per hour and you hear someone breathing really heavy as they go through someone's house holding a fucking camera. And that's supposed to be building tension. You don't know where this house is. You don't know. You find out later it takes place back in time, but you don't know that because they don't establish fucking anything. You still don't know where the house is. So the rest of the movie is made up of these two people sitting at this fucking little table while they sit in this big warehouse, and they sit so far away, and the warehouse is so huge, and their sound design is so bad, you can't make out fucking anything. And the worst part is, in the background, and I swear to God, this is fucking true, and it is why we use the sound effect at the beginning of this episode, I swear to God, you can multiple times throughout the fucking movie clearly make out in the background someone flushing a fucking toilet. And they didn't edit it out. They didn't decide, let's take another take or like get John off the fucking toilet. They'd get him over here. It's whoever's supposed to be directing this piece of shit. They'd get him to stop taking that piece of shit and put his piece of shit over here so we can film it, because that's what this fucking movie is. I mean, how incompetent do you have to be of a filmmaker to leave a toilet flush multiple times in the background audio of your fucking movie? That's unbelievable. That's so bad. That is, I mean, you have to do that intentionally. You have to intentionally say, we're going to leave that in. We're not going to try to do anything to it. They're not going to try to hide it. It's more clear than the actual dialogue you're supposed to be listening to in the movie. So you're constantly listening to someone who's probably got diarrhea flushing the fucking toilet behind the set. And calling it a set is being really generous, because it really is just an abandoned warehouse. But these people spend the entire movie sitting at this fucking table talking about some sort of psychic experiment, and there's like this like box in between them. And so eventually the woman's like, okay, I'm going to take the psychic experiment. And he's like, okay, we're going to do that. And so their psychic experiment is to go into this white world of CGI. But it's CGI in the same way that like the first Star Fox game was CGI. This is not a world inhabited by, well-designed animated creatures. This is a world of just sharp polygons. If you took the original Super Smash Brothers and you cut off Link's nose and threw it across the screen, that's what the graphics look like. It's just fucking triangles floating against a white background, and you have no idea why. And I swear to God, it felt like it was an eternity. But I think it was about 3 minutes of a fish. It was supposed to be a red fish. It was basically a red diamond with a red triangle stuck on its ass with like a blue dot at the front of its head. And it was floating through this just arbitrary grayish white space for like 3 minutes with no sound whatsoever. It was completely fucking quiet. And then eventually these like rough spheres start popping up out of the ground, and you'll realize that's supposed to be coral. And so that's happening for a while, and the fish is just floating through the gray void with no sound whatsoever. Completely no context. No idea what's going on. I just spent 5 minutes of my life watching some fucking graphics design freshman, his fucking project that he did for like the entrance level design of his freshman class. That's what I watched for 5 minutes of my life.
Can we give the listeners some context, just so they understand how shitty this is? When was this movie made?
Oh my! I think it was like 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2009. This was so. I can understand, like, maybe if you thought this movie was made 20 years ago, that's why the animation is so bad. No. This was made after WALL-E.
Yes, it was. I mean, fuck, I have no idea how to design graphics. I could make more compelling graphics on fucking PowerPoint than what they had in this movie. And so, God damn it. I mean, I cannot even express how long. I feel like I lived a lifetime just watching that fucking. I have nightmares about a red fish. I want to find all the red fish in the world and kill them. Kill all of them. Because if I see one just like out of the corner of my eye, I'm going to go insane. And I'm just going to jump off a building or something, because I cannot handle. It's pathetic. And they're like little like white spheres were supposed to be bubbles that just slowly float up in the dim gray void with no sound whatsoever. And the red fishy floats away slowly, slowly. I watched that for 5 fucking minutes. And then it cuts back. And you know what it cuts back to? Yes, it cuts back to the people in the fucking warehouse, and they talk dialogue that you can't understand what they're saying, and if you do make out any lines, you don't know what the fuck they're talking about. There's something about a serial killer. They're performing a psychic experiment, which they say like 5 billion times in the fucking movie, never explaining what the fuck the psychic experiment's supposed to be. And then it cuts back to the fucking gray void. But this time there's no fish. Apparently whatever the gray fish thing was, that was just a primer for these are the real graphics. This is like, now they've like solidified their psychic experiment. The woman's ready to delve into her psyche for whatever the fuck the reason is that they're doing this. There's a serial killer somewhere, so it has to be something with this woman. And so they do the same graphics to make a person. And they're not any better. It's like a bunch of blocks stacked together with a sphere on top, and that's supposed to be a person. And they just walk through a gray void for like 10 minutes. It's even longer than the fish thing. And nothing happens. You just watch this weird little shitty graphic design thing walk through nothing in complete silence set against a gray background for like 10 fucking minutes. And there's no context for it. You have no idea what the fuck's going on. There's just nothing. You don't know who this, like, random person is supposed to be. You don't know how it relates to the woman. You don't know what the fuck the psychic experiment is. You have no idea why the fuck the psychic experiment takes the form of, like, an N64 graphic once you've, like, vomited into the fucking processor, because that's what it looks like.
Yeah, I saw the trailer, and it had some of those graphics in it, and I was so, like, N64 is way better than that.
Yeah, you have to vomit and probably piss into the processor for it to generate graphics that terrible. Yeah. And then, I mean, I'm blowing through this so fast, but I'd have to spend hours just talking about that one sequence to truly do justice to how dull it was. It's the most boring thing I've ever experienced in my entire life. Absolutely. It's the worst thing that's ever happened to me, is watching this movie. It's the worst thing. And it's like, it was so bad, I couldn't stop it. It's like, it just entranced me. And it's just like, I was just like, I can't move. I just can't, there's nothing I can do right now. I have to sit here and subject myself to this torture because it's so evil. I can't not do anything about it. It's so evil. It's like divine. It's like Satan just like grabbed my eyeballs and glued them to the screen, and I couldn't look away. And so then it cuts back. I think something happens where the fake guy stabs another guy, and it's like, oh, it's like the serial killer thing we're cutting to, but we have no idea what the fuck it is, what it has to do with anything we're talking about, and what relation it has to do with the setting, the time, the characters, anything in the movie we're watching right now. We have no idea what the serial killer is supposed to be. So it cuts back, and everyone acts like some great big revelation has just been dropped. It's like, oh my god, there was a killer, and he did something. It's like, you people you've been talking about the fucking serial killer. You know there's a serial killer. I don't know why you care. I don't know why you've been conducting the psychic experiments, but I guess you found out something significant in your fucking claymation project. So then there's this okay, in the warehouse there are these like series of boxes. And one of the boxes moves. And it moves because it's attached to a piece of string and someone off screen pulled the string, and you can tell that. It wasn't like some fancy effect. And this box moves. And everyone's like, everyone, like the two characters we've been stuck with for like an entire hour, just like, oh my god, that box moved. And then they get up and they start shouting, they start shouting, I don't even remember the name, but they start shouting this name. And as far as I can tell, what was supposed to be conveyed to me, this is after, like, meditation. I climbed a mountain, I sat at the top of the mountain, I meditated for a week without any food or water, and that's how I've divined the plot to this movie. The woman at some point, when I think she was a child, lived in the house that we kept cutting back to, but that's never talked about at all. I'm just guessing this.
Okay.
And that the serial killer came in there and killed maybe her parents, maybe somebody she knew, and she repressed the memory. We never see, when it cuts back, we never see anyone in the house. We never see anyone get killed. The only person we ever see get killed is Joe Polygon in the dream sequence, whatever the fuck it was. And so we see that. So I'm like, okay, maybe she's like a little girl. She's repressed the memory, and that's why you have the psychic thing going on. So it's like a psychic thing. Okay. And I think there's the ghost that moves boxes, because that's what ghosts do. That's the power they wield, that they gain from losing their life and living in the other world, is that they can move boxes around, because that's the only special effect they could possibly think of to convey the presence of a ghost.
Special effect.
Yeah, the effects were really special in this movie, I tell you what. But either the ghost was the ghost of the serial killer who died at some point, or the ghost was of the person the serial killer killed. I don't know, because the only thing the ghost did was move boxes, and at some point it started talking, but it started talking when someone was flushing the toilet, so I don't know what it said. So the killer, the ghost, moves some boxes. They act really surprised because boxes are fucking moving, and it's so fucking terrifying. At some point, something gets resolved because the ghost goes away. The girl forgives him, or like the guy realizes that we conducted psychic experiments, and so we've solved this ghost's trauma. And this is just me pulling shit from like all like the supernatural like fiction I've consumed, like all my years of watching X-Files. Just like, okay, the ghost has to have a reason to exist. They've got to have solved it somehow for the ghost to have gone away. And the only thing they've done for the entire movie is sit there and subject me to torture in computer-generated form. So that's the only thing that's happened for the entire fucking movie. So something relating to that had to have solved the ghost's problem with his addiction of moving boxes. So that happened. The ghost went away, and then the movie stopped, and then I weeped for about a month. And I'm here telling you
Did
this
I,
now.
not hear from you for a month? Like, you just dropped off the face of the planet or something?
I remember I made a Facebook post, and I was so...
I remember that.
Oh, my God. I was so... when I said I weeped for a week, I'm being facetious. I was angry for a year. I'm just now getting... I was so fucking mad. I'm not even trying to be funny. I was literally just furious after I watched that movie, because the movie ends and it's like on something I can move and I can like exert free will again, because I've been thrown free of its spell. I'm just like, what the fuck? What the fuck did I just do to myself? Who the fuck made this? I have to kill people now. I have to kill that bitch and the guy. Because they're the only people I saw, so it's like, if I see them in real life, they're dead. There's nothing stopping me, and then I won't be convicted. I'll just, like, show the trailer in court. They'll be like, oh, fuck you just, like, saved society from these monsters, these demons walking in the forms of people that make fucking movies to try to steal your soul. I mean... I'm a different person now after having seen that. I thought it was like, I've seen some pretty bad movies. You know, I saw Transformers 2. That was a piece of shit movie. But no, I knew nothing. I mean, Transformers 2, Jesus Christ, that's like Citizen Kane. That's even better than Citizen Kane compared to After Last Season. Transformers 2 is like an orgasm on the screen compared to After Last Season. That's how much better Transformers 2 is compared to that movie. And I hate Transformers 2. But compared to After Last Season, it's like God descending down and just giving me a blowjob. That's how good Transformers 2 is compared to fucking After Last Season. So do not watch the movie. Do not watch the trailer. Do not go see stills. But I do have one last thing to convey. The evil of this film is that you think, looking at it, that they paid it by prostituting themselves, and that's how they made the budget for the movie. They just you know, they fucked the actors, and then they found the director, and probably the director fucking probably wrote the entire thing. The director was probably the graphic designer. But this movie had a budget. There was money put into this movie. Actual money. Like millions of dollars were put into this fucking film. As a scam. These guys got investors to give them money to make this movie as a fucking scam, because they spent none of it on the fucking movie, and they just took all the money for themselves. That's evil. That's fucking... I mean, the people who made this movie are like the villains in most of the movies I've seen in my life.
That's actually the plot to the producers.
It's so fucked. It's so fucked. Everything involving this movie. But the one shining light here is if you go to the trivia on IMDb, which I don't even do this. I'm just going to tell you this right now because I've seen After Last Season, so I can be tangentially connected to it and not kill people. But you might die if you watch it. So the film was only released in 4 cities. Afterward, distributors called each theater individually and told them to burn the prints because it was cheaper than sending them back. If that's true, whoever the distributors... Oh,
I've read that on other sites, too.
No, they're heroes. But I suspect that that's just an excuse made up to explain a bizarre phenomena. I contend that what actually occurred was that the evil condensed into the literal film could only exist on the mortal plane for a certain amount of time before it just spontaneously combusted. And nobody knew what the fuck happened, so they just came up with this excuse. They just came up with this idea of what they were going to do. It's like, okay, we'll just explain that we had them burn it because it's such a terrible movie. No, this movie just like hellfire just seeped up from the alternate dimension from which it came and just consumed it again to go back to the realm. That's what happened to the film. But the fucking human genius, we came up with digital means of storing video, and so now it exists for all time because
digital video can still get
it's too much. It's grounded now into our dimension, Jonathan. It can't go back to hell. It's here for all eternity.
So is this going to be
part of our existence?
So are we going to have to do a Terminator 2 thing where we like destroy all the like hard drives and stuff that it's contained on, like stopping Skynet? We stop after last season.
It's too late. It's too late.
The Judgment Day has already happened.
I mean, fuck. I have another theory about how After Last Season came into being. If I may.
Go ahead.
Okay, so at some point in the future. See, I have this theory.
Was this during your week of meditation on the mountain?
Yes, I have this theory that in the history of mankind, in the history of the universe, we are naturally supposed to be good creatures. That if there's some sort of objective morality, we're naturally supposed to be good. But at some point in the future, far off into the future, something happened. Something happened that was just so monstrously evil that it just shattered the timeline and sent evil back into the past and has corrupted the rest of the timeline. And that event that happened in the future was the real After Last Season. There's a true After Last Season that got made at some point in the future that introduced evil into the world, just opened the floodgates, shattered the timeline, and what I saw was like a shadow. It was a brief glimmer, just poking through the timeline from past to future of that true movie, and I saw that, and I wept. That's what After Last Season is. It is that which made all evil in mankind. That's what it is. That's what has made all of our... I mean... I made the joke about the Satan thing, right? Think about this. What if it wasn't Satan that came first and After Last Season modeled itself after Satan? What if After Last Season came first and Satan, the word and the concept, exists as a corruption of After Last Season? That's what happened. I watched pure evil, so you don't have to.